4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Drop the boogie.
here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor, 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and, of course, streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in. That's 855-212-4227. And you could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter X at Zach Gelb. That is ZACHGELB. Peter Burns going to stop by from the SEC Network. Coming up at hour 20 from now at 4:20 p.m. Eastern, 1:20 p.m. Pacific time. We will do a ton, and I mean a ton, of college football today. We are here in our New York City studios Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday this week, and we are on the road on Friday in D.C. We'll be at Army-Navy for a little radio row on Friday, and then you do have the Army-Navy game coming up on Saturday. Heisman Trophy, we'll find out who are the finalists tonight. I have submitted my vote. I have put my vote in. I did so late Saturday night. I was a good, respectable voter. I waited for the conference championship games to end, and then away we go. I did put in my Heisman Trophy vote late Saturday night, maybe even early Sunday morning, and we'll find out on Saturday. I'll be at the Heisman Trophy presentation on, is it going to be Ashton Genty? Is it going to be Travis Hunter? Will it be Dylan Gabriel, Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Cam Scatteraboo? Like, who's going to win the Heisman Trophy? But what a fun 2 days of college football on Friday and on Saturday. Congratulations on Friday to Army. Congratulations on Friday to Boise State. Then we saw a few epic conference championship games. Georgia, even after losing their quarterback, they were able to outlast Texas in overtime. You had Oregon and Tez Johnson, who was unbelievable, up against Penn State. The Sun Devils, I thought that was going to be an epic back-and-forth game. And then Arizona State just blew them out. And then you had that wild ACC championship game where the ACC championship game really set us up for what was a day of debate late Saturday night, early Sunday morning before we got the results by the committee, which leads to the biggest topic of conversation. Did the committee get it right? Did SMU deserve to go? Or should Alabama got into the college football playoff? And you know, I had a tweet of mine that got picked up in a few articles. When SMU was getting blown out by Clemson, I said SMU's playing themselves out of the college football playoff, because even though all week last week I said, if you're a Miami fan, shut up. If you're an Ole Miss fan, shut up. If you're a South Carolina fan, shut up. Like, you didn't do enough to make it clear and obvious on the Tuesday rankings that you deserve to belong in a 12-team format for the college football playoff. But I said all through last week that the only time I'd be irate with the rankings is if Selection Sunday comes and goes, SMU loses to Clemson, and SMU doesn't go and they get penalized for losing in a conference championship game when they had one loss all throughout the year. So even with that being said, when SMU was getting blown out, there's sometimes I think something should happen, and I know it won't happen. I thought that SMU had no chance to get into the college football playoff. And then SMU's just started to slowly chip away, and then bam, they tie up the game or they get a touchdown to bring them within one. And I'm sitting there on my couch with 15 seconds to go, and I had a buddy of mine over who's a big Penn State fan, went to Penn State. Hanging out with people that went to Penn State. I know, surprise, surprise, but one of my close friends is a Penn Stater, so we had some rigatoni alla vodka. We had some chicken parm heroes. We had some cannolis. I had a credit on DoorDash, so we were just going ham. We didn't have ham, but we were going ham on the food. Had a little Caesar salad as well from this place, Parm. And we were ordering, we were eating, watching the games, all that stuff. And when SMU pulls within one, I'm saying Rhett Lashley has to go for two. Like, solidify your spot in the college football. Just go for it. And then he kicks the PAT. Clemson gets a great return. They make one throw, and then boom, they hit a 56-yard field goal. And in that moment, because I'll unpeel the curtain back a little bit, and I'll peel back the curtain a little bit, Samter and I were texting all late Saturday night. Samter may or may not have had a cocktail or two while he's watching his Arizona State Sun Devils. And Samter was very aggressive on his text to Stu and I, just with his enthusiasm and the passion that he has for the Arizona State Sun Devils. So I knew this was a celebratory day for Samter, and he may have started hitting the bottle a little bit earlier than normal on a Saturday. So I go, hey, when the games end, I want to get my predictions out. So Samter, to his credit, was like a mad scientist. He's like, well, what happens if this happens? What happens if that happened? This guy has 6 different brackets. So I told Samter, when it looked like it was a blowout, I didn't think SMU was going to get in. So I know he gave me other alternatives if they came back, but I was a little stubborn. Once SMU still didn't win the game, even after the impressive comeback, I sat there and I said to myself, I even said on my Sunday show yesterday on Sunday Morning Football right here on the network, I said, I think SMU should go, but I don't think they will. And I really didn't believe up until that Brett McMurphy tweet where, you know what, how obnoxious is that? Brett McMurphy. You got a selection show. I know you're an insider, and I know it's not his fault because someone leaked him the information, but whoever leaked him the information of the results in that room that SMU got in and that Alabama didn't, shame on you, because it takes the entire suspense out of the show. And I know you could look at the betting lines, and the betting lines indicated that SMU was going to get in and Alabama wasn't. But how that was ruined for us and that was spoiled for us, I really did hate it. But I sat there up until that Brett McMurphy tweet, and I said, SMU should go, but I don't trust the committee. And say what you want about the committee, and the committee is hypocritical. They have inconsistencies a ton, but on the final bracket, they were consistent. And the theme for the committee was not penalizing teams that lost their conference championship game. Because I really did think that we were going to see, I think I had Notre Dame 5, I thought Texas was going to be 6, Ohio State 7, and then Penn State was going to fall to 8. But the committee didn't penalize Texas and Penn State, who do not have great wins this year. And in their big game up against Oregon and Ohio State, Penn State lost. Texas lost to Georgia twice. They didn't penalize Texas and Penn State for losing close conference championship games. So we saw Texas 5, Penn State 6. You obviously had Notre Dame 7, and then you had Ohio State in at 8. So that was consistent. Once you had SMU in, they said, we're not going to take away, and we're not going to reward, right, teams that didn't make their conference championship game. So SMU's going to get in, Alabama's not, and we're going to still give the edge and the benefit of the doubt to Texas and Penn State for losing their conference championship games compared to Notre Dame, who doesn't have a conference, and Ohio State, because they lost to Michigan once again, remind you that, because they were sitting home on their ass during the Big Ten championship game. So those were the takeaways from that. And since then, there's a conversation of, did Alabama get screwed? And I'll get to that in just a second, but the bracket ended up being, just to reiterate it, the byes were Oregon, Georgia, Boise State, Arizona State. No problem with that whatsoever. It was pretty obvious that was going to be the case. Our first round matchups, Notre Dame 7, Indiana 10, Penn State 6, SMU 11, Texas 5, Clemson 12, and Ohio State 8, Tennessee 9. Here is what I will say, and let me make this abundantly clear to Alabama fans. And Alabama fans, I defended you last week when Miami fans were bitching and complaining. And by the way, Miami fans, how much air did you waste last week? How much of your breath did you just waste on absolutely nothing? Even if they would have put you in the bracket last week over Alabama, the debate then would have been Miami or SMU, and you still would have been left out. So the Miami fan, we talked way too much about you last week on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and it was all for nothing practically after we saw what happened with the ACC championship game and then what did transpire on Sunday. But to any Alabama fan that's saying we got screwed, I know what your argument is. Your argument is this: well, we're a better team than SMU. Okay. I can't debate that. I do think that your wins are better than SMU's wins. You have 2 wins, one against Georgia, one against South Carolina, SMU doesn't have a win on their resume that's better than those wins. In a 4-team format, I think you could get screwed. In a 12-team format, I don't think you could get screwed. So even if you think you're a better team, fine, but you also thought you were a better team when you went up against Vanderbilt. You also thought you were a better team when you went up against Oklahoma, and guess what? You lost. So just because you think you're a better team doesn't mean you deserve to go. The bottom line is Alabama didn't do enough. In a year where outside of Oregon, where everyone stubbed their toe and then was able to get back up and a lot of teams stubbed their toe again, you did that. And you didn't do enough to make it clear and obvious that you belonged in a 12-team format. So for the committee to go with SMU, quite frankly, I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem with it whatsoever. Don't lose to Vanderbilt. Don't lose to Oklahoma. Just win one of those games between Vandy and Oklahoma, and I really do believe you would have made the college football playoff. And you would have made the college football playoff easily. And now let me get to the Alabama AD. Because the Alabama AD, can you just go out in a graceful, classy way one time? Like, I heard our pal Kalen DeBoer speak to the media. He said, I believe in our football team, but clearly we didn't do enough. This Alabama AD, Greg Byrne, who's talking about how disappointed he is with the outcome and how in future years they're not going to schedule tough games out of conference. I guess I missed the Alabama schedule this year. We're at a conference. They played Notre Dame. They played Ohio State, right? They had this great out-of-conference schedule. You played Western Kentucky. You played South Florida. You went to Camp Randall, and you played a pathetic Wisconsin team that had their quarterback injured in the game. You played Mercer late in the season. So save me, Greg Byrne, the small violin on how, in future years, we're not going to play tough out-of-conference teams. You didn't make the playoff because you lost in conference to a lousy Oklahoma team and a Vanderbilt team who was gritty this year. But let's be real, your team failed to show up because they were still celebrating the Georgia victory. That's why you didn't get in. Because of those two losses in the SEC. And you didn't make it clear and obvious to go in a 12-team format. I have zero sympathy. And I like Alabama. I love Kalen DeBoer. But I have zero sympathy for any school complaining about being left out of a 12-team format. In a 4-team format, you feel like you could get screwed. In a 12-team format, I don't think you could get screwed in a 12-team format because there's so many ways to get in. And outside of Oregon, I don't know if there's a great team in college football this year. They're the only team that's undefeated. We have a 3-loss team. We were talking about maybe 2 3-loss teams getting into the college football playoff. So you didn't do enough. And that's the bottom line. And now the future of Alabama football, I think there will be great overreactions. I do. I think a lot of people are going to be negative about Kalen DeBoer. That's fine. Kalen DeBoer got to a national championship at Washington. In year 1, though, they had some good moments where they beat LSU, they beat Georgia, but they weren't good enough. And I said this going into the year, so it'd be disingenuous now if I walked it back. Alabama's season would be a failure if they didn't make the college football playoff. I never said they needed to go to a national championship game. I never said they needed to win a playoff game. But when you're replacing Nick Saban, and with the talent that you have, you can't have enough inconsistencies that you displayed where you miss a 12-team format. So is there pressure on Kalen DeBoer? Yes. Do I still think Kalen DeBoer is the right guy for the Alabama job? Yes, I do. But to not make the college football playoff for Alabama in year 1 post Nick Saban, it's not a good look. And it's going to show you that it's not as easy as it used to be for Big Bad Alabama. Do I think Kalen DeBoer is capable of winning a national championship one day at Alabama? Absolutely. I do. But I don't want to hear it from the AD about, the non-conference schedule. It'd be one thing if you didn't get in because you had a loss to Notre Dame or you had a loss to Ohio State. Like, come on. Your only 3 losses were all in conference. against a bad Oklahoma team, a gritty Vanderbilt team, and a Tennessee team who's good, but your quarterback didn't show up, and he had no awareness in that game, and that's why you lost it by 7 points. So that's where I stand on that. I have no great over-the-top overreactions to what the committee did. Like, there's some things I can nitpick. I don't think Alabama got screwed. I'm fine with SMU getting in. If you want to tell me the order 5 through 8 with teams like Texas, Penn State, and, you go through those teams and you see Ohio State as well and Notre Dame. If you want to tell me like that order you'd like to change, and maybe Oregon, who's the best team in the nation right now, got a tough draw, that they got to face the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State. Okay, that's fair. But there's nothing that I look at with what the committee did where I go, I'm incensed about it. And if you are, it's just because you're miserable and you love to complain. All right? Like, that's just the bottom line. We could all bitch about something. It doesn't mean the bitching is valid. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Florida right out of the gate. Larry's first up on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Larry!
Hey, buddy. I talked to you yesterday morning. I said SMU got a break because all ESPN, ABC, Disney cares about is the 2 prime Friday night and Saturday night 8 o'clock games has to be filled by Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame. They have 3 teams. That's all they cared about. And they were filled by Notre Dame and Ohio State. What happened? Sure enough, Ohio State and Notre Dame got the 8 o'clock spots on Friday and Saturday. So they didn't need Alabama. And that's why SMU got the pick.
Yeah, but you have to admit the TV company, ESPN would much rather have Alabama than SMU.
But they had the 8 o'clock spots filled.
I understand that with Indiana, Notre Dame, and then they have Tennessee, Ohio State. Yes, that makes sense to put Notre Dame in primetime. That makes sense to put Ohio State primetime. But if Alabama was undefeated this year, you don't think they would have got one of those primetime spots?
Yeah, they would have. But they only care, the ratings and the money does not matter in that 4:30 window. It only counts in that 8 o'clock window. So they needed 2 of those 3.
Well, they put Texas in the 4 p.m. window. Texas is a pretty big brand. They put Texas Clemson in the 4 o'clock window.
But again, like I said to you yesterday, SMU got the break that Ohio State and Notre Dame did not get a bye, that they were both going to play 8 o'clock spots on Friday and Saturday night.
Yeah.
So Alabama was not going to be pushed by ESPN, ABC, Disney to the committee yesterday. And I think that really helped SMU.
Larry, I appreciate it. I understand in some years where that theory could be valid. In this case, I just don't. It doesn't line up and make sense to me. And Notre Dame can't get a bye anyway because they're not in a conference. I understand, Larry, that yes, Notre Dame's going to get a primetime spot. Ohio State's going to get a primetime spot. But I don't think those schools getting a primetime spot is why you would then say, oh, we still don't want Alabama in the mix. Like if the decision was directly up to Disney, I'm sure they would have put Alabama in over SMU. And some years there are conspiracy theories that I think we lay into. This year, I don't think there's a year for a conspiracy theory here because Big Bet Alabama didn't get in and SMU did. So I don't think we need a justification. I think the point that is obvious here is the committee had a theme yesterday. And the theme was, we're not screwing over teams that lost in their conference championship game. SMU got in. You had good seeds for Texas and also for Penn State in that 5-6 spot. And that is what I thought the theme was, not, oh, Notre Dame's 8 o'clock on that Friday, Ohio State's 8 o'clock on that Saturday, so therefore we don't need to have Alabama in and we could bury SMU up against Penn State at noon on Saturday. It just doesn't make sense to me. But I appreciate the phone call, Larry, and appreciate you making it 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. Did the selection committee get it right? Did SMU deserve to go in, and are you fine with them going in over Alabama? 855-212-4227. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on the Infinity Sports Network. And when we come on back, my first reaction yesterday when I look at coaches, I think there are 2 coaches who are under a tremendous amount of pressure to reach the semifinal. Where one coach that I'm going to mention, I don't think it will surprise anybody. The other coach, I think could surprise some people because we don't usually talk about him in a way where I usually say there's a lot of pressure on this coach, and I usually praise him. We'll get to those two coaches when we come on back right here on the Infinity Sports Network. But first, football season is in full swing, and you take full advantage by winning some cash with Sleeper Picks. Sleeper Picks is a fantasy game, but you can win real money. Just pick more or less and at least 2 of your favorite player stats, and if you're right, you could win. You can pick up to 8 players to win up to 100 times your money. For a limited time, Sleeper has a special offer. New users just have to play $5, and they'll receive $55 in free bonus entries. That's right. If you deposit $25 and play $5, they'll give you 11 $5 bonus entries to start playing. So download the Sleeper app now and use promo code SCORE and get in on this promo before time runs out. What are you waiting for? Download Sleeper today and unlock one of the fastest growing fantasy sports apps in the world. Use code SCORE to claim the play $5, get $55 bonus entry offer. That's code SCORE. Must be at least 18 years old in most state and in present state where it is legal to wager. Promo code, location, and other restrictions apply. Minimum deposit $25. See terms of use for details at sleeper.com. Please play responsibly. Call 1-800-426-2537 for help. Sponsored by Sleeper, a Blitz product.
You're in a 4-minute break. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. 15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. I'll get to which two college coaches are under the most pressure as we enter the college football playoff. Oregon 1, Georgia 2, Boise State 3, Arizona State 4. First-round matchups, Ohio State, Tennessee 8-9, Texas, Clemson 5-12, Penn State 6, SMU 11, Notre Dame 7, Indiana 10. Stu, two things. Number one, so I am going to the national championship game. I'll be doing the show there in Atlanta on Monday, and then I'll get up early Tuesday morning and fly back here to do the recap on that Tuesday. I saw that the Orange Bowl is the semifinal, and that is, I think, on a Thursday before Wild Card Weekend in the NFL. You know, I'm debating potentially, because I got family in Florida, I'm debating maybe, put in a credential request and go to the semifinal on that Thursday. And then maybe I fly back Friday to do the show from Florida or something like that. So that's on my mind, but I haven't fully decided yet. I'll definitely go to the national championship game. And I am going to go to the Pinstripe Bowl, which you saw a Yankee game? I mean, a college football game at Yankee Stadium before?
I did. It was actually the Pinstripe Bowl when Notre Dame played Rutgers maybe like 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago at this point.
Yeah, so it's Nebraska and it's Boston College. So I got to go see my guys over at Nebraska at the Pinstripe Bowl. I don't ever think I've seen a college football game in a baseball stadium, so I always wonder what the vantage points are going to be like for that.
Yeah, from what I remember, it's not great. It's just not ideal because it's for a baseball stadium, it's small, and then you're trying to put a football field inside of it. I don't know.
How did you think about Notre Dame's draw, by the way? 7-10, you get Indiana. You know Signetti's going to be going nuts and saying they got screwed, and, why are they ranked 10, and Google me. And I saw Marcus Freeman already said, oh, yeah, I Googled their coach. Notre Dame, they had that horrible loss after that great win in week 1 up against A&M in Aggieland. Then they did not bounce back, and they did not continue that where they lost to NIU. But since then, they have won 10 in a row to finish off the season 11-1. Run game's been really good. Defense been playing well, led by Xavier Watts. Riley Leonard has taken a huge stride. But that Indiana team with Curtis Rourke and company, they're a confident bunch. When you look at the first-round draw, are you happy that it's Indiana? You're like, I'd rather have Notre Dame moved up a spot or maybe back a spot when you look at the draws.
Yeah, I obviously would have rather... I mean, I'm glad I didn't get the 8 because I'd rather play Indiana than Tennessee. But
okay,
I absolutely would have loved to be 5th or 6th, but I think the committee got it right. I think you can't penalize those two teams for losing close games in their conference championship game. So Notre Dame gets slotted in at 7. I think that's fair. I think it's going to be a close game against Indiana. I think they'll win, but I think it'll be like 4 points, 6 points.
I think it's going to be a sloppy game.
Yeah, low scoring.
If it's high scoring, I favor Indiana on that. If the game is played in the 20s, like mid-20s and below, then I think Notre Dame is going to be able to find the way to get the victory. But if you win, you get Georgia. And Georgia, Carson Beck, his arm was about to fall off. And he got hurt right before the end of the first half of the SEC championship game. And then he was in for the final play because he had Gunnar Stockton take over. What a great football name, by the way. And his helmet fell off. And I thought it was targeting, and I'm like, oh, that stinks because then you're going to be out the first half of Texas's playoff game. And then they said, oh, no, it's not targeting. But then he had to sit out of play because the helmet fell off. And then you had ATN out there, Beck with basically one arm handing the ball off, and ATN put it in the end zone. But there's some reports out there that they don't think Carson Beck is going to be able to play, which would be the second round, but Georgia's first college football playoff game. I think that's the Sugar Bowl. So if that's the case,
yeah, it is. Yep.
Man, Notre Dame, Indiana. I know that we could look at Georgia, and I know that Carson Beck wasn't playing well, to be fair anyway, and he hasn't been playing well really all this season. But when you have Georgia in that spot, if Notre Dame wins, that's a winnable game, even though Georgia, right, we're all saying is vulnerable, and they still won the SEC. It's not as if this is Georgia from 2-3 years ago or even last year, where if you're Notre Dame or Indiana, you're shaking in your boots getting a second-round matchup up against Georgia.
I think Notre Dame would lose that game.
Okay.
I don't feel confident that they can beat Georgia. I think Georgia.
Could it be a game?
I think Georgia would win by 10.
Okay. Even with the backup quarterback?
Yeah.
Okay.
I just think the talent around the quarterback is so much more than anything that Notre Dame's faced this year, and I think they'll not be able to contend with that.
855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Kevin in San Antonio. Kevin, appreciate you calling as always. How you been?
Hey, Zach, I'm doing fine, man. This is my second time, and I'm going to be keeping on calling you on your show. Now, what I know, this is just the beginning of this playoff picture with the college football. It's just like the college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have teams that go shock the big schools and so forth. And I know Alabama. I hate that they didn't pick Alabama. SMU is resurrecting. They coming back, and I think they should just expand it. What do you think?
I don't want to see any more teams. Now, Kevin, with that being said, I do think they will expand it because the first jump was from 4 to 12. So if they make that drastic of a jump, I do think they'll eventually go from like 12 to 14 or 12 to 16, depending on the format, because money does influence it. But I really do believe that the committee wanted to stress a point because there was a lot of narratives once we went from 4 to 12. And one of the narratives were, hey, the conference championship games really don't matter. So if they kept SMU out after going 11-1 because they lost the conference championship game by 3 points at 11-2, some people would have said, well, if SMU just didn't make the conference championship game and they were at 11-1, they wouldn't even have been up for debate to not make the college football playoffs. So since they lost in the conference championship game, they didn't want to punish SMU. And then also you saw that in the seedings of Texas and Penn State being the first spots that weren't by being 5 and 6, and they lost in their conference championship game. So I just want consistency, Kevin, and we got consistency from the CFP.
Okay. Well, this is just the beginning, and, it's going to get better.
Now, you're a chef, right? Don't you like to cook, if memory serves me right?
Oh, I'm a cook. I love to cook.
So what are you cooking up? Like if I came over your house and we're watching one of the first college football playoff games, what are you cooking up? Just wondering.
I'm just wondering. I could cook up some hot dogs, some fries, or hamburgers and so forth.
A little ribs? Like, could we get a little saucy here, or is it just hot dogs and hamburgers?
I'm learning. I'm going to cook some ribs one day.
So you're in the infant stages of being a chef, Ben. You could cook me a hot dog, you cook me a hamburger. If we could maybe work in some brisket or a filet mignon cheesesteak, then I think I come over and we have a beer together or something. Maybe a little bourbon.
Right. Okay, I don't drink, but man, but I love to cook. I just love to cook.
You got it, Kev. Always appreciate the phone call. Thanks so much, Kevin in San Antonio. All righty, two coaches that I think have an enormous amount of pressure on them to get to the semifinal. And let me say it this way, and I'll preface it with this statement. Anyone that's just looking over Boise State and Arizona State, you haven't been paying attention to college football this year. And it shows. Boise State has Ashton Jeanty, who could win the Heisman. Ashton Jeanty's having one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen. Not the greatest, but one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen from a college running back. They played Oregon back in week 2. They should have won the game. Ashton Jeanty was able to pop off for 197 yards in that game and had 3 touchdowns. Arizona State has been one of the hottest teams in the country. Cam Scadaboo is unbelievable. We'll see if they get their wide receiver Tyson back. And Sam Leavitt, he missed 1 game this year. They lost that game. They've lost 2 games total this season. But he was great in that Big 12 championship game. And Kenny Dillingham doesn't fear anybody. So if you're Texas, if you're Clemson, and you're Penn State, or you're SMU, and if you're thinking to yourself, if we just win that opening round game, we will easily walk through to the semifinal and just take care of business and do whatever we want up against Arizona State and Boise State, I think you are mistaken. And I'll go as far to say this. I believe, I'm not saying both, and I got to see the matchup when it does happen and how the games do play out between Texas and Clemson, Penn State, SMU. But when I saw the bracket yesterday, I thought to myself that either Arizona State or Boise State in the 3-4, one of those schools are going to find a way to pull off the upset in the second round. I'm not saying both. I don't know who yet, but either Boise State or Arizona State, I do believe, will be in the semifinal. With that being said, there's a lot of pressure on James Franklin, and there's a lot of pressure on Texas. Because I think Penn State and Texas are not great football teams this year. Texas had 2 opportunities to beat Georgia. One was at their house. The other, they were playing up against a backup quarterback for a half. They couldn't find a way to get the job done. Penn State, their 2 biggest games of the season, Ohio State and Oregon. Oh, let's pat Penn State on the head because they showed up against Oregon. They lost the game. They lost up against Ohio State. They had a malfunction, I guess, with their play caller where he just had a brain fart where he forgot to hand the ball off to Tyler Warren when you're at the goal line 2 yards out up against the Buckeyes. So, yes, even though I think one of Boise State or Arizona State could get to the semifinal, with the draw that you got for Penn State and Texas, I would go as far to say it would be an extreme disappointment, and I would even look at their season as a failure if Texas or Penn State with James Franklin and Sark aren't in the semifinal. And then anything you do after that, I'll just say no problem. No problem whatsoever. But when I look at those 2 teams, you have not had a great win this year for Texas, and you've not had a great win this year for Penn State. So win your first game, and then you got to do damage up against Arizona State or Boise State, and anything short of that would be a failure of a season, for my opinion, when I look at James Franklin and Steve Sarkisian this year. 855-212-4227. Let me quickly squeeze in Adrian and Maryland next up on the Zach Gelb Show. Yo, Adrian, what's shaking?
Hey, Zach, what's up, man? I was listening to your show yesterday, and I actually put down $25 on a plus 530 for Alabama to get in because
so did I.
We're going to put them in.
We're both down $25, my friend.
Right. Man, it's cool. Hey, I got a question for you. The way Georgia was looking for the first half, the way Carson Beck was looking, and they lost that game, do you actually think with the committee saying they weren't going to penalize anybody for losing in their conference championship, would they have put Alabama in over Georgia if Georgia lost that game?
No, and here's why. 2 things. One, I think Carson Beck has been more bad than good for most of the season. So if they lost, I don't think they would have penalized them, even though Alabama did defeat Georgia this year. But really, number 2, I think a lot of people looked at it and they said, they made the Florida State joke, right? Oh, Jordan Travis got hurt, so then they got to be consistent. They set a precedent. All those precedents get thrown out the window because that was for a 4-team playoff. This was for a 12-team playoff, so I don't think an injury would have been a reason why they ended up keeping Georgia out. Adrian, always appreciate the phone call. I'm up against it, so I got to let you run. You can always chime in if you want to talk a little college football playoff, 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. We will get to a news brief coming up later. I'm wearing a Met sweatshirt today. Marco Belletti, it's not, and he always wears a Yankee hat. You know, this is if you weren't wearing a Yankee hat, I would think something's wrong with you.
There would be something wrong.
You okay after losing Juan Soto to Queens with the New York Mets?
I'm pissed.
You are. Well, do me a favor.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be a tease because I know we're up against it. Your next update, we will talk about Juan Soto because a pissed off Marco Belletti is a Marco Belletti that I enjoy. And very, very nice flannel, by the way. Is that new? Button down?
No.
I've never seen this one from you.
Might be new-ish.
Okay. Not the ones that I usually see for the last 8 years or so.
Well, yeah, I don't see it every day anymore.
It's a nice color
I probably haven't seen you in a couple months. So, maybe in the last 6 months to a year. I don't know.
That's a really nice color on you. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You probably want to hear that from your wife, not me.
I'm a little uncomfortable. You have me at a disadvantage
here
right now.
Let's do this. Let's just get to an update with El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Zach, sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Protect your family, your phone, and your furry friends with Life Electronic Device and Pet Health Insurance. $765 million over 15 years, a $75 million signing bonus, and opt out after 5. It can be voided, making the deal worth more than $800 million. Those are the details for Juan Soto as he gets a mega payday to join the Mets' largest contract in sports history. No deferments like the Shohei Ohtani deal, which is valued at $460 million in today's money. So the Soto deal, $345 million more than the Ohtani deal in present-day value. Now that those Soto sweepstakes are over, we'll see if that opens up the free agent market and the trade markets for more movement at the winter meetings, in Dallas. Philly's already reportedly getting closer Jordan Romano. North Carolina, Bill Belichick still discussing their head coaching vacancy. 73-year-old possibly contemplating a run in the college game for the first time in his career. Of course, 6 Super Bowl championships with the Patriots, 2 more as defense coordinator of the Giants. Cowboys and Bengals closing out Week 14. Elsewhere, you got the Panthers running back Jonathan Brooks tore his ACL for the second time in the last 13 months. Obviously, his season is done. And just one game in the NBA tonight. That's the Knicks on the road for the Raptors. I'm Marco Belletti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
And it's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, gets asked us a question. It's brought to you by our good friends at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INF SportsNet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Let's start things off. We're on to UNC. I think there's a chance my girlfriend's going to enroll in grad school at UNC, and she'll get a little advantage because I'm the head football coach, if you know what I'm saying. This is Bill Belichick on the Pat McAfee show on coaching college versus the NFL, with the hoodie being linked to UNC.
It seems like college football is more like pro football. I've talked to a lot of college coaches about things like the salary cap and putting value on players and negotiating and kind of mixing all that together. So I think there are some similarities from what I've heard. I haven't experienced it firsthand, but feels like that.
Let's hear more from Bill Belichick. And this is Bill Belichick at Adam Schefter's UNC report that Bill met with UNC for 5 hours over the weekend.
You said you talked to the chancellor. Schefter told us that you talked to him for 5 hours yesterday. Is that real? 5 hours?
Yeah, let's just leave it at that, Pat. I mean, I don't want to give out too much information. I'll lose my press conference. I want to get my press conference aura back.
He's back. He is back. Bill Belichick 6-7 weeks ago. UNC. I wouldn't go there if my life depended on it. Mac Brown's a friend. He's a great coach, but come on. I'd rather work for that clown Woody Johnson than go to UNC. Bill would have been open a few weeks ago. Now, him kind of keeping us all guessing. Stu, I can't believe I'm about to say this. I thought he was using UNC. I still think he is, but I do think there's legs here, where he's basically sending out a little flare signal. Hey, Jacksonville. Hey, the Giants, the Cowboys. You don't want to back channel to me and say you're going to give me the job or you'd be interested? Then I'll go take the UNC job within a week or two. I do think there's a legitimate chance Bill could be the next head football coach at UNC. Let's get to Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, and Rob Gronkowski on Fox Sports on the possibility of Belichick to UNC.
Belichick is actually interviewing for college jobs? Can you imagine him coaching college?
No.
Absolutely not. Recruiting an 18-year-old?
You really want to come here? I mean, we don't really want you anyway, but I guess you could come. We'll figure out if you play.
Bring your parents and use them as a third party, you're gone. You're off the team.
There's kids here at Chapel Hill High that would be better than you that I would rather give a scholarship to. All righty. Yeah, you missed this block on a pancake. You could have pancaked this guy right through the A-gap. And now you want $250,000 more from name, image, and likeness? Everyone says NIL. How about just FU? All right? Go into the transfer portal, you miserable football player. Logan Mankins would have never wanted any money. Would have never. All righty, let's keep it moving. Hey, Aaron Rodgers, how about your thoughts on the Jets' 14-year playoff drought?
This organization now, it's 14 straight years without making the playoffs. That's almost hard to do.
What's the question?
Well, can you reflect on that and just why?
I mean, I've started 1 year, so I'm a part of it for 1 year. It's disappointing.
It's amazing. It is a weird, funky question because Aaron didn't have anything to do with the other 13 years. He got hurt, so I'm not going to hold that against him. But this is the 1 year that he has something to do with it. But even if there's any way where he can hold himself accountable, he's just incapable of doing it. Let's go to Spencer Danielson, the head football coach at Boise State, on people who are going to be doubting Boise State heading into the playoff.
Knowing this team, Jay, knowing how they're wired, I'm already, like I said, hearing him talk about the guys that are counting us out, that are talking about how, shouldn't be there, or, this is going to be an easy road for SMU and Penn State, whoever wins. Great. Love it. That's what this place is built on. Chip on their shoulder. Please count us out. And that's our guy. So I'm fired up.
I talked to two coaches after their conference championship games. I sent a message to Dan Lanning. We had a little nice back and forth. And then I also sent a message to Spencer Danielson, also thanked him for coming on the show the other week. And he said, "Thank you, Jesus. So proud of our boys staying in the fight all year long. They deserve it. CFP, let's roll." I love the energy. Love the energy from Coach Danielson. Here is John Summerall at Tulane. There was a lot of rumors he was going to UNC. He put out a statement today, and they've actually come to a new contract with Tulane. But here was him the other day just talking about possibly leaving.
Am I here? I mean, my good. Do you want me to leave? All right. I get asked about it every day right now, and I'm like, I know we lost 2 games. Everybody wants to run me out of town. I'm here. I showed up to work today. I'm not going to comment about hypotheticals. And look, Gary, people call. They call my agent. I don't talk to them very often. Like, very little gets to me. Very little. Like, almost nothing gets to me. I'm not talking. When it gets to me, it's usually because I'm like, this is something that could be really something I need to consider. Nothing's getting to me right now. I can say that. Nothing's getting to me. Could that change? I mean, I don't know. If some newspaper tripled your salary, you might go. I'm just saying, I don't know. I'm very happy.
I thought he was gone after that. And he ended up saying. So how about that audio? Love that. Kirby Smart, Georgia coach, on his quarterback Carson Beck, who injured his UCL in his right elbow. Here is Kirby.
I certainly think there's no good script, right, for losing a quarterback or having to go to your backup. There's not a great script for it. It certainly wasn't a great script last night to have to do it against the number 1 team in the country on defense. And have to do that at halftime was tough. But this situation does give you time if that's what has to happen. I mean, there is time there, but experience is so valuable, and you can't really get experience in this amount of time. I wish he'd gotten more game experience up to this point in time. There's not a lot we can do about that.
And Georgia will get Notre Dame, Indiana, whoever wins that. Finally, here's Scott Frost, and leaving UCF for the first time. He's back at UCF.
It was hard for me to leave. It was emotional for me to leave, and there was a lot of pressure for me to go and do something else. Coaching's funny too. You put yourself out there and you compete and you do the best you can, and sometimes it works great, sometimes it doesn't work great. At UCF it worked great. Sometimes it doesn't.
So there you go, Scott Frost. Who said you can't go home? You're at Nebraska, you went home, and then you go back home to UCF. I understand people are talking about this gritty behind me with the back face. I actually turned that gritty around a few weeks ago. So I guess I'll turn it back forward because some people looking at this gritty mascot behind me, they're saying, oh, it's mooning us on the YouTube chat. So we'll fix that during the break. It is the Zach Gelb Show.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, away we go. Hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. A ton of college football in the first hour. We'll continue the college football train right now. Peter Burns from the SEC Network is going to stop by 20 minutes from now, as we do have our bracket. Oregon 1, Georgia 2, Boise State 3, Arizona State 4, And the first round matchups, Ohio State, Tennessee, Texas, Clemson, Penn State, SMU, Notre Dame, Indiana. Stu, I don't know about you, but I feel like when we saw the brackets come on out the last 3 to 4 weeks, those first round matchups, I was saying, like unbelievable matchups. When I look at these first round matchups, Ohio State, Tennessee gives you an ooh and an ah. Texas and Clemson, yeah. It's a good matchup, fine. Penn State, SMU, that doesn't really excite me. And Notre Dame, Indiana, it doesn't really excite me either. I thought there were better matchups in the last 3 or 4 rankings, just in terms of the way I felt about them, where I know when these games happen, I'm going to be locked in, I'm going to be fired up, I'm going to be watching them. But the matchups the last few weeks, I don't know if you feel this way as well, Stu, they just felt stronger than what we ultimately got.
Yeah, I think not having Alabama in there kind of impacts that a little bit. And also having SMU not as a bye team might as well.
That's true, because for a while we had the ACC schools in the bye spot, and the Big 12 was in the 12 seed. Now, SMU loses. Miami lost the week prior. ACC didn't get a bye spot in because Clemson won the conference champion. You could only get a bye spot in your conference championship if you're a winner. And Clemson getting the 12 was justified because they had 3 losses in the regular season. So that's a good point that you do bring on up. All righty. When we look at it, though, first round matchups, and I don't know which way you lean on this, Stu, but here's the poll question I put out there. You can find it at Zach Gelb at INF Sportsnet. Clemson 12 at Texas 5. Tennessee 9 at Ohio State 8. SMU 11 at Penn State 6. Indiana 10 at Notre Dame 7. Who do you trust the most to pull off the first round upset? Is it Clemson? Is it Tennessee? Is it SMU? Or is it Indiana? I'll let you get your first opportunity at this, Stu.
For me, it's definitely Tennessee. That's the one that I would point to and would not be surprised at all if they beat Ohio State.
So here's the funny part about that, is that I agree with you, even though the question is who do you trust the most to pull off the first round upset. I will say, out of the 2, 4, 6, 8 teams that did not get a bye, I think the best out of those 8 teams are actually Ohio State. I feel, though, as if Tennessee, Ohio State is truly a 50-50 game. Maybe it's 51-49%. But if I gave a first glance at it, Ohio State, Tennessee would be the toughest one that I would have in deciphering who's going to win the game. And then you keep on looking at it. Texas, Clemson, I don't love Texas. I think Texas is overrated. But I do think Texas is going to beat Clemson. Even though I would love, and I mean love, to see SMU walk into frigid Happy Valley and kick the snot out of James Franklin. I think Penn State's going to win that game. And Notre Dame, Indiana, there's a little Signetti fear factor. Just because that dude, and this is a quality I look for in football coaches. And I kind of started this when I told it to Dan Lanning last year, where I said, Coach, with all due respect, you have some football psycho in you, which I love, where when you get on that field and they blow the whistle to start the game, just something empowers you and something overtakes your body where you look like you're zoned in on only football. And he could kind of be, I'm not, because his program's really good, so I'm not, this meme is usually used in a negative way. You know that dog that's surrounded by fire and is just saying, oh, everything's fine, everything's fine? That's kind of like Dan Lanning in terms of everything is fine for him. But there could be horrible things happening around him. It doesn't matter. It's all ball, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to kind of kick your ass because I'm at a different level right now when it comes to just the way that I operate and I think about football. So that there is a Signetti factor where there's even, I don't know, man. Did you hear him on ESPN? I think it was on Saturday when he was talking about how the projections have been so disrespectful to Indiana and they only have 1 loss. Did Coach have a little eggnog a little bit too early? A little eggnog about a month before Christmas? That's what I was thinking when I was hearing Signetti just start to ramble. So I would agree with you, Stu. I would say the team that I trust the most to pull off the upset is Tennessee. But also, it's not as if I sit there and I go, Tennessee's definitely winning the game. Because it's starting to look like, let me ask you this. Oregon or the field, Stu? Would you take Oregon or would you take the field to win the college football playoff?
I would take Oregon.
You would?
Yep.
Now, would you agree with this sentiment? If it is not Oregon, you think it's either Texas or Tennessee. Would you agree with that? Just wondering.
Texas or Tennessee?
Sorry, Ohio State or Tennessee is what I meant to say.
Right, so that would be the team that beats Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still think Georgia has a decent chance if they get back healthy, but
Georgia is one of those teams.
I know, they're so hard to
We've been saying it all year long. They're vulnerable, right? Carson Beck hasn't been playing well. We don't know when Carson Beck's going to come on back, but until they get knocked out when it matters, it is tough to pick against Georgia. I'm with you that if you gave me two guesses right now, just in terms of winning, Oregon or Georgia. But now with the uncertainty of the Georgia quarterback, that could come back to cost them not knowing when he's going to be able to come back, even though he hasn't played that well this year. But look at the SEC. We talked about how Georgia's been vulnerable all year. Texas couldn't beat them. Alabama beat them, but they didn't even end up making the playoff. And they only had 3 SEC teams make the postseason when you look at it with it being Tennessee, Texas, and Georgia. So, yes, I still think Georgia could win it all, but I am starting to feel if I had to circle one road in terms of who's going to have the national championship, and I could only pick it with 3 teams, so like Oregon, Ohio State, Tennessee would be one tier. Arizona State, Texas, Clemson would be another tier. Boise State, Penn State, SMU would be another tier. And then there would be a 4th tier of Georgia, Indiana, and Notre Dame. I would take the tier of Oregon, Ohio State, and Tennessee. And even though I do think Oregon is going to win it all, if they lost in the second round, then I would say, okay, Ohio State, Tennessee, whoever advances from that and then beats Oregon, they would then be my pick probably in all likelihood to win the national championship. And I look at those 3 teams. Do we need to really expand further on Oregon? No. They're undefeated. They haven't lost a game. Everyone's lost a game this year besides Oregon. Dylan Gabriel's really damn good. The defense can play well. And we know that Tez Johnson, man, Penn State had no answer for him. Penn State's offense, I'll give Drew Aller credit. Up until the interception at the end, Drew Aller played a really good game. And I think Drew Aller won a lot of people over on Saturday night. But Oregon could do whatever they want with Tez Johnson, who ended up winning the MVP of the SEC championship game on the offensive side of the ball. He had 180-something receiving yards and a touchdown. So Oregon's resume speaks for itself. But you look at Ohio State and Tennessee, I know we talked earlier to just get to the semifinal, there's an insane amount of pressure on Sark. There's an insane amount of pressure on Penn State because of the fact that Penn State's road is SMU, then they get Boise State, and I would not sleep on Boise State. Texas, Clemson, and then Texas, if they win, they get Arizona State. I would not sleep on Arizona State. But you look at that first-round matchup, Ohio State, Tennessee, there's also a lot of pressure on Ryan Day because he's at home. And if they start out the game where Will Howard goes 3 and out, coming off a Michigan loss, a loss to a bad Michigan team, which how about this? The Michigan season goes from an unmitigated disaster to in 1 week you get Bryce Underwood, the highest-ranked quarterback, and then you're also able to beat Ohio State. And now it's like a bad Michigan season turns out to be the greatest 5-loss season of all time. That's the way it feels like. But if Ohio State loses that game to Tennessee, in a weird way, I still think Ryan Day is back. And I know Urban Meyer has put out a statement. He's not interested in coaching again. But at that rate, how do you not call Urban Meyer? Belichick, how do you not call Bill Belichick for crying out loud if he doesn't take the UNC job by then? For Ohio State, if they lose to Oregon, all right, it just wasn't your year. You lost to them twice. But if you lose to Tennessee, and Tennessee, I think, is a dangerous team. Like, if I look at all these upset teams, Tennessee, Clemson, SMU, Indiana, I don't think Clemson could win a national championship. I don't think Indiana could win a national championship. I don't think SMU could win a national championship. Tennessee, I think they can. And Tennessee also is in kind of that Alabama category where we talk about if everything clicks for them, what their potential could be. And Nico Iamaleava has had some good moments and he's had some bad moments. But Tennessee, they got a really good defense. They do. And it's all coming down to, can their quarterback step up and deliver? Because there's some games Nico Iamaleava has looked really good, and then there's some games where Nico Iamaleava has looked like a freshman. So I do think Tennessee, out of Tennessee, Clemson, SMU, and Indiana, if you said, Zach, one of those teams won the national championship, my pick would be Tennessee. And if I had to say, hey, who's the team I'm the most confident to pull off a first-round upset, it would be Tennessee up against Ohio State, even though Ohio State's a heck of a team. But if I had to circle 3 teams in terms of the bracket, the 3 teams I would circle that are just linked together in terms of the first-round match when they go on who they play in the bye, it would be Oregon, Ohio State, Tennessee, one of those 3 to win an Natty. You know, Arizona State, Texas, and Clemson. You know, can Texas win a Natty? Sure, I don't feel great about it. I don't think Arizona State could win a Natty. I don't think Clemson could win a Natty. Boise State, Penn State, SMU. I don't trust any of those 3 to win a Natty. Notre Dame, Indiana, Georgia. I feel good about Notre Dame, but there's still a thought, how many times have we seen this Notre Dame story before? And I'm usually someone that always says, oh, Notre Dame, when they get into a big game, I will never believe in them. I'm more open to believing in Notre Dame this year, and Georgia can obviously win a national championship. So this thing is, if Oregon goes down, it is then truly wide open. I know a lot of people would pivot to Georgia, but there's a lot of uncertainty with Georgia because of the Carson Beck situation, even though Carson Beck has not been playing good football this year. So I would say out of these 4 schools, Clemson, Tennessee, SMU, and Indiana, who do I trust the most to pull off the first-round upset? I would say Tennessee's 1 in terms of order, most likely to least likely. I would then say Indiana, because of the Signetti factor, would be 2. Clemson would be 3. And then SMU would be 4. Least likely. I don't think SMU has a chance to beat Penn State. I just don't. Now, Stu, how do you think our voters on the poll ended up going? Most likely to least likely. Clemson, Tennessee, SMU, Indiana. How do you think they ranked it? 1, 2, 3, 4.
So I would guess that they would say Clemson was the least. So I think they would go 1 Tennessee, 2 Indiana, 3 SMU, and then 4 Clemson.
Very close.
Okay.
Tennessee was 1. Indiana was 2. How is there a tie here? 18.2% Clemson, 18.2% SMU. So I think that says a lot of what people believe about Texas and what people believe about Penn State in those first-round matchups. But, man, even with Texas and Penn State, and they should both beat Clemson and SMU, what's the great victory for Texas this year, and what's the great victory for Penn State this year? The answer? There isn't one. Like, you look at Texas, their wins are Colorado State, Michigan, UTSA, Louisiana Monroe. I feel like anytime I say Louisiana Monroe, it should be in an Ed Orgeron voice. Louisiana Monroe. Mississippi State, Oklahoma, Vanderbilt, Florida, Arkansas, Kentucky, A&M. You know, Texas's best win, I think at the time it was perceived to be Michigan, just because they were top 10. But how it's aged, I would say it's A&M, and they played Georgia twice, and they ended up losing. And you look at Penn State, West Virginia, Bowling Green, Kent State, Illinois, UCLA, USC, Wisconsin, Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland, and their 2 losses were Oregon and then also Ohio State. I guess their best win, probably from a record standpoint, it's Illinois, who went 9-3. But in terms of the win that I remember the most, it was USC. Because they were down, then they had that good second half, some bad coaching by Lincoln Riley in the second half. But Drew Aller made some big throws late, and Tyler Warren was a stud in that game. So, which team do you trust the most to pull off the first-round upset? Clemson, Tennessee, SMU, Indiana. Right now, Tennessee's 1, Indiana's 2, and then tied for the last spot, it's SMU and Clemson. What say you? 855-212-4227. 855-212-4227. We'll do more college football playoff reaction. And also, did Alabama get screwed, not getting put into the playoff, and SMU getting in? We'll chat next with Peter Burns, SEC Network analyst.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, reacting to what the College Football Playoff Committee ended up having our final 12 teams and releasing that yesterday. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. Let's go out to the guest line right now and welcome in one of the best analysts at the SEC Network, and that, of course, is Peter Burns, who's kind enough to join us. Peter, appreciate the time. How you been?
Not as good as Juan Soto now, making $750 million. I see the Mets jersey, so everybody's pretty happy about that. But I guess the transfer portal is popping in college football right now, too. So some kids are making some money as well.
Yeah, we had a big move with Juan Soto, obviously. When we get to the coaching carousel, you think there's some legs here with Belichick going to UNC if we're going to talk about maybe Coach Belichick dealing with the transfer portal?
Yeah, no, I thought it was kind of like a joke account when I first saw it. But, they're talking, for 6 hours. And I think from what I've heard from up there, there's a little bit of smoke. And really, when you start thinking about it, it's not that far-fetched as far as, yes, it is Belichick, a huge name, but also the way that some of these college football programs now are starting to work like NFL franchises. They have a GM, they'll have a salary cap guy, which runs their collective. And now that they're looking at more of an NFL structure. I mean, the game, especially in the SEC, is moving towards more of like an NFL light version. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, although I do have some concerns because you go back and look at Herm Edwards when he took over Arizona State, and that was going to be like, hey, we're going to have a GM, we're going to run this like an NFL thing, and it didn't work out extremely well. So well, now it works out good for Arizona State because Kenny Dillingham has them in the college football playoff, but I'm kind of curious to see how that whole thing plays out.
It's kind of wild when you look at the buy spots right now. If you would have told me before the year Oregon and Georgia would be there, okay, I would believe you. I've been a big advocate of Boise State. I would have never thought they would have got a bye, though, before the season started, maybe make the playoff. And then Arizona State, we all know that, Peter, they were predict dead last in the Big 12 before the season started. So it's crazy how the buy spots ended up playing on out.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be one of the things that I even talked to Commissioner Sankey and talked to people, especially, my gosh, I can't imagine how Oregon fans feel like, hey, you're the number one seed. You went undefeated all season long. Your gift may be taking a week off, not having a home game, and then having to play Ohio State or even a good quality Tennessee matchup. So I think one of the conversations that's going to happen after this first 2 years of the 12-team playoff, by the time we get to 2026, I think there's going to be some serious momentum about reseeding the field. Still having the same criteria for the field to get in. However, once they do it, then go by the college football playoff rankings of, hey, 1 through 12 are the highest ranked 12 teams that were selected. They reseed them and go from there.
Yeah, I don't know what you think about this, too. I've been saying this since the summer. I'm not a fan just because you win your conference championship that you get an automatic bye. 4 out of the 5 schools that do that get into the playoff. And my producer actually gave this idea to me because he goes, well, you still have to find a way to reward the conference champion in some way. Maybe just the 5 highest-ranked conference champs, they just get a guaranteed home game, but not a guaranteed bye spot. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be ways to where they look at it, and that's and I haven't thought about that. I think what you do is you play it out for these 2 years. The only problem is because remember, we came to the college football playoff expansion 2 years before. Right? This was supposed to happen in 2026, so there really wasn't a whole lot of time to kind of think this through. And right when they decided that they were going to expand it is right when conference alignment, started, or realignment started as well too. So, one of the things I've learned by working with next to Greg Sankey so much over the last decade is like, hey, relax. Like, let's see how this whole thing plays out for a year. Let's talk about it. And I even saw the athletic director at Alabama, who's a good friend, Greg Byrne, came out and said, hey, listen, we might reevaluate our schedules in as far as maybe we should play easier schedules, because they felt like, it was maybe we should make it easier for the teams because the SEC competition is so hard. I think that's a little bit of a ghost threat, and I think it's a little bit of an overreaction at this point right now. Let's see how this thing plays out. And hell, if you have 3 of the 4 teams in the semifinals from the SEC, then you can say, look, we told you this is the best. If not, and especially how much parity we've had in college football, then maybe you don't change a whole hell of a lot.
It also made no sense to me what Greg Burns said because there would be some merit to it if they lost an out-of-conference game that was a tough scheduled one. Their 3 losses were Vanderbilt, Tennessee, and Oklahoma, and their out-of-conference schedule was South Florida, Western Kentucky. They played Wisconsin and then Mercer. That's why it didn't add up for what he was saying.
Well, in a weird way, I mean, listen, they had a tougher strength of schedule because they did play in the SEC and they played so many ranked teams, and they beat 3 of them. I get what he's saying, but I could argue the flip side of the conversation and the fact of, like, because they did have a tough strength of schedule is why the committee would even compare them at some point to SMU. So listen, all I know is that, I know a little bit of college football. You probably know more. Nick Saban knows more than anybody. And like him, love him, hate him, whatever, you have to respect his opinion. And if what I think the greatest coach in the history of college football says these conferences are not made alike, whether it be the ACC or the Big 12 and the SEC, I'm probably going to lean towards backing his opinion.
Yes, so it's kind of funny how it works from week to week as Peter Burns is here with us, because last week I laughed at Miami fans and I said, well, Alabama, even though they don't have more wins, they beat Georgia, they beat South Carolina. What's your best win? And you could say the same thing here with SMU. I just think the committee made it clear they had a message, and maybe they were sensitive to this because everyone said, these conference championship games aren't going to matter. They didn't punish teams like SMU, Texas, and Penn State for losing their conference championship games. And we always ask for consistency with this in this very ambiguous product, and we got consistency from the committee.
Yeah, and again, it's consistently inconsistent, right?
Yeah.
This year might be most deserving. Last year, you could say Florida State was definitely most deserving, but they put a better team in Alabama, per se. So it goes back and forth. I mean, that's the struggle part about it. So you're going to find out what happens. I mean, the thing is, and I talked to Rhett Lashley about it and others, and he made a good point. He goes, listen, at some point after 12 games, Alabama, Miami played 12 games, Ole Miss, South Carolina, we played 12 games. The College Football Committee said we were the top, we were worthy enough to be selected. Our resume versus Alabama as SMU was better than Alabama's. That's what they already said. So why should I get dinged for earning a bonus game? And I can't disagree with that. And that's why I thought the selection committee should select SMU, and ultimately they did.
You said they should. Were you positive that they would, though? Because I said this yesterday when I was on the air. I thought they should take SMU, but I thought they were going to take Alabama.
I'm not good at many things, but the only thing that I've been good at in 11 years is I've correctly predicted after all the conference championship games what the field would be. Even when there were some kind of years where there was a little bit, not a lot of them, but some controversial. And I nailed it again this year, like others, because I really realized that with SMU, especially what you had a former ACC athletic director that's sitting on the board, another ACC former athletic director, and a former ACC coach on that committee, along with a couple of Big Ten guys. And after what happened to FSU, I knew they weren't going to do it once again. And combine that and go, it's a coin flip. And at some point, you're going to say, I'm going to just agree. I mean, you basically would have been a de facto ending the ACC as a conference, because you would have been to there with those committee members and said the ACC is a joke conference, and they're not going to do that. It may play out that way like it did in the Pac-12 that led to the realignment, but that's not the case right now.
What do you think the bare minimum is for the Texas fan? We know Sark has done an incredible job there, back-to-back years in the playoff. Their best win this year was A&M. They lost to Georgia twice. Their road, they play Clemson. Then if they win, they get Arizona State. What's the bare minimum how far Sark has to go for Texas fans, in your opinion, to feel satisfied about this season?
I mean, farther than – he's already done more than Lane Kiffin did at Ole Miss, and even Eli Drinkwitz over at Missouri, where they felt like this was a college football playoff run for him. And truthfully – he's got a lot less pressure on him than, say, Ryan Day at home after what happened in the way that they've absolutely just been pathetic against Michigan. So I think for Sark, they would be disappointed with a first-round exit, especially at the hands of Clemson. I think, honestly, SEC fans in general would be more disappointed in Texas than Texas fans would be, because they're like, bro, you're going to come in here to this conference, you're going to get them the championship game in year one, and then you're going to lose to an ACC squad. Like, that's like the whole conference would be pissed at Texas. But I like Sark. I think Sark is open. He's honest. He knows where, hey, they have issues, and they just ran into a Georgia team that was not going to be denied once again.
Yeah, it's a tough road, by the way, for Tennessee. And I'm glad you brought up that Ohio State-Tennessee matchup. But they're a team that I think is dangerous. Now, even if they win, they have to go up against Oregon. But with the formula that Michigan kind of has displayed up against Ohio State, I like that Tennessee defense. We know Sampson's a heck of a back. I know Nico Iamaleava has been up and down this year, but I think we're going to see them run that ball a lot up against Ohio State and kind of get physical with them.
Yeah, I think the big thing in that game is obviously the fact that it is in Columbus was monstrous, and that's why it was so huge that they ended up having the 8 versus the 9, and that was flipped. Because I damn sure would put Tennessee in that game had it been in Neyland and 110,000 people going absolutely crazy, nearly cursed. But that's exactly what they would have done on there. Heupel's known for his first quarter scripts, and traditionally nobody has scored faster in college football in the last 3 seasons than his teams. And so if all of a sudden Tennessee gets the ball first, they march right down the field and score. Buddy, there might be some boo birds out there in Columbus that all of a sudden things get real tricky for Ryan Day's security as the head coach over at Ohio State. With that being said, I do have some concerns about Nico Iamaleava, Cali kid. How is he going to play up there? A, in that environment, B, in that weather. I think it'll be a run fest, and obviously we saw what Michigan was able to do if it turns out to be that way.
On the way out with Peter Burns from the SEC Network, Georgia. We saw the Carson Beck injury. Georgia's been vulnerable all year. They still won the SEC championship game. Beck got in there right at the end after the helmet did fly off to have the game-winning handoff. We don't know what his status is going to be. There were some things out there today with the extent of the injury, and now they don't feel like he's going to be able to go in that first playoff game for Georgia. What's your view of Georgia now with the uncertainty surrounding Carson Beck?
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of, you could say Ohio State and Cardell Jones back in 2014. It reminds me of Stetson Bennett taking over for Georgia a couple years ago when they had some injuries. Is I did notice, if you go back and look at the game film, we're on the field right at halftime, and I noticed just the way the Georgia bench almost exploded when Gunnar Stockton got his opportunity. It was almost like Rudy getting an opportunity to play at Notre Dame. Like, they love this kid. And, Trevor Etienne and him kind of had this really cool moment right before the snap where they looked at each other, high-fived and patted each other on the head. And it was like, all right, buddy, it's your time. And I thought that was really, really cool. He played extremely well. The offense actually engaged pretty well, minus outside of that horrifically bad pick. And that's one of the reasons why he's been behind Carson Beck is that, hey, he just doesn't have the experience. They got plenty enough time. They got a good coordinator in Mike Bobo. Now they're going to have to rely on defense, and it's something that Kirby Smart kind of likes because he's done that, found a way to win a couple of games, including maybe arguably the hardest college football schedule we've ever seen and what they had to go through in the gauntlet this year.
They kind of remind me of the Chiefs. Everyone keeps on saying they're not going to get there. They're vulnerable, and they still won the SEC. So I'm not going to sit here and tell you Georgia can't win it all once again this year now.
I know. Trust me. After they lost to Ole Miss, I told people, I was like, listen, if you want some value, go ahead and put money on Georgia winning the SEC championship because at that point it was 20 to 25 to 1 or so that they would even get in. They need some help to get in, but damn, they're like this football zombie right now. It's really tough to take them out.
All right, last thing I'll ask you. I'm a big fan of Kalen DeBoer. Year one, I thought he had to make the college football playoff. They obviously were the first team out. How do you look back at the Crimson Tide season?
Yeah, what I expected, I thought they would go 9-3 and miss the college football playoff. They went 9-3. I thought there was going to be a lot of attrition. There was. I thought they had kind of figured it out with Milroe. Once they figured out that, hey, he wasn't Michael Penix, how they were going to use them. You go back and look at the LSU game where they just, turned him into more of a running quarterback that had a little bit of a pass threat ability, and it was perfect. And yet what ended up costing them was just laying an egg, something that Nick Saban teams never did in the history of him over being in Alabama. So, but overall, a lot of attrition out there. I still think I'd be surprised if they're not a college football playoff team next year. I just think in Kalen DeBoer, he's a winner. And I think, I think the floor is set with DeBoer at 9-3, and there's only ways to go up there in Tuscaloosa.
He's Peter Burns from the SEC Network. Peter, appreciate you doing this today.
See you, man.
There you go. Peter Burns joining us. All righty. Peter mentioned that I was wearing my Mets sweatshirt. We will get to Marco Belletti right now, El Capitan. The New York Mets get Juan Soto on a $765 million contract for 15 years. Mm-hmm. The Yankees offer was, 16 for $760? So here's what I thought. For the last month, I said I was dangerously confident that the Mets were going to get Juan Soto. And the last 2 days, I felt like the Mets were getting used. Now looking back at it, kind of looks like the Yankees were getting used, where they drove up the price, and then Steve Cohen said, I'm just going to keep on going. I'm going to keep on going. And that ended up being what the final offers were. How did you kind of react from a Yankee fan standpoint when you got the news last night that the Yanks didn't end up retaining Juan Soto?
To me, I mean, it's a disaster for the Yankees. Not only did you allow the Mets to come and take your player for the first time ever, but let's be honest, you showed your ass in this one. Because they needed to make the best offer. And as the Yankees have done over the last 15 years or so, they decide that as long as we get close, you're going to want the pinstripes. You're the Yankees. You were supposed to be the team. You were always the team that bid over the top to try to prove that you come to New York, there's a lot of expectations, but with that, we'll pay you a premium. Now the Yankees have gone out and said, you're going to take a discount because you're going to get the aura of coming in here to put on the pinstripes to play in the Bronx.
And he's like, nope.
Who the hell is doing that?
Yeah.
The Yankees are all of a sudden crying poverty. They asked for one more offer, and the Yankees offered another year, which is dumb business. And less money?
Yeah, that makes sense.
What exactly are you trying to do?
Why didn't you just give what the Mets offered?
But you saved what? $4 million a year? So you're willing to spend $760 million, but you're afraid to spend $4 million a year? You're pinching pennies. And honestly, as a Yankee fan, I've seen this over the last decade, and I feel like they've almost kind of programmed us to understand this is the way the world works. No, it doesn't. It's who you wanted it to work like this. You chose to not have the best offer. You chose to let the other side of town come take your best player.
Yeah.
And what is your now fallback? What's it going to be? Because you spent $30 million on Soto this past season.
Bregman?
Hang on. You spent $30 million on Soto this past year. You were only willing to go to $47 million for a generational talent.
Yep.
So what makes me think that you're going to spend more than $40 million this year on your payroll?
It's going to get
nothing.
Ugly. It's going to get ugly quick.
So what are you going to do? You're going to patch it with mid-level guys?
I'll tell you what they're going to do.
So basically, you went from steak of the absolute highest caliber to now steak them, and you're going to put it all around the diamond, and you think it's going to make you better? Stop it.
Oh, you're mad.
You stop it. They lied to everyone, including themselves, and that's the worst part for me.
So you're a big treat people the right way kind of guy. I thought this was like a Ballsack Sports report, but it was from John Heyman. Did you see this thing where I guess one of the security guys like kicked out Soto's like chef and driver and then mother and father from an area, made him stand out in the rain, and then the Mets brought in one of their people to say, oh, we'll treat him the right way. Did you see that?
I saw the report. Do I believe the report? Yes. Do I believe the report had anything to do with him signing? No.
Okay.
That's nonsense. That is total garbage. Because if that's the case, then he's not one of your final two teams. Yeah. Stop it. $765 million over 15 years is why Soto's is a Met.
Yeah.
That's why and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with taking the last dollar. But he was your guy. If the Yankees,
they could have kept him.
No. See, that's the thing. Kept. If he's a free agent and the Mets outbid for a guy that played for the Padres or the Nationals, I don't like it, but I understand it. He's your guy. You traded for him.
And you blew it.
You went to the World Series with him. You saw what he would be in the Bronx.
Yeah.
And you decided $4 million a year.
It's wonderful.
Was too much.
It's wonderful.
To me, that's unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable.
He is El Capitan Marco Belletti, fired up today. We'll get to some onside, offside next. Update time first. Here's Marco.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Zach, we're sponsored by Mint Mobile. Switching at half off unlimited premium wireless at mintmobile.com/score. Sports world still abuzz with that Juan Soto landing the richest contract in professional sports history. 15 years, $765 million to join the Mets. It's got an opt-out after 5. The Mets can void that, adding another $4 million per over the last 10 years, which would make it $15 and $805 million in all, not to mention a $75 million signing bonus. So Soto now charged with helping the Mets bring home their first championship since 1986. Elsewhere, winter meetings are going. Phillies reportedly helped their bullpen land former Blue Jays closer Jordan Romano. Japanese pitcher Roki Sasaki posted to Major League Baseball, available to sign beginning tomorrow through the 23rd of January. 23-year-old reaches triple digits on the radar gun, but can only be signed to a minor league deal subject to the international signing bonus pools. Talks between Bill Belichick and North Carolina reportedly remain ongoing. 6-time Super Bowl winner has never coached in college, but the 73-year-old seems to want to get back into coaching after spending this year doing the media rounds. Resolution on the situation, one way or another, reportedly expected at some point this week. Monday Night Football will wrap things up for the week. Cowboys hosting the Bengals. Panthers lost rookie running back Jonathan Brooks to a torn ACL, his second in the last 13 months. I'm Marco Belletti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb.
All righty, Stu, what do we got cooking today?
All right, so the Juan Soto sweepstakes are finally over.
I can hear the pain in Stu's voice as a Yankee fan that he is.
The 26-year-old chose your Mets on an insane 15-year, $765 million deal. Reports say Soto chose the Mets over the Yankees, whose best offer was closed at 16 years, $760 million.
Close, but yet so far.
Very far. Onsides, offsides. After stealing Soto from the Yankees, the Mets are no longer the little brother of the Bronx Bombers.
On sides. I said this Saturday at WFAN when I was on in New York City. This is a move for the first time in my life where the Mets are now the team, the baseball team in New York. You're the Yankees. If you are truly still the New York freaking Yankees, you don't let Juan Soto take a subway across town. Let's be real, he's not taking a subway with that money. Or get in an Uber, or get in a Blade across town and go to the New York Mets. So yes, after stealing Juan Soto, how about that, Stu? The Mets are no longer the younger brother of the Bronx Bombers. You know, the cheap Bronx Bombers. Maybe I'll send them a DoorDash gift card or something so Hal Steinbrenner can afford dinner. Yeah, on sides. Next one.
It is not looking good for Kirk Cousins in Atlanta as the Falcons dropped their fourth straight and fell behind the Bucs for the lead in the NFC South. Now, in those 4 losses, Cousins has thrown exactly 0 touchdowns while also tossing an insane 8 interceptions. Today, head coach Raheem Morris addressed the quarterback situation.
Everything is always discussed when you go watch the tape and do all those type of things. But like Kirk Cousins is our quarterback. We'll have the ability to go watch this tape just like we do every single week. You know, Kirk played significantly better than he did the week before. We got a chance to go out there and focus on us and get a chance to go out there and really work on what we do and what we do well. And we'll do whatever is best to go win football games, and Kirk's definitely a part of that.
So onsides, offsides, the Falcons should start Michael Penix next week against my Raiders.
Onsides. And isn't it crazy? When they signed Kirk Cousins, who would have known that they would have drafted Michael Penix Jr.? And I'll tell you this, Bill Belichick, if they should have hired over Raheem Morris, he would go to Michael Penix Jr. right now. So the Falcons should start Michael Penix next week against the Raiders. Yeah, I know it's a good bounce-back spot for Kirk Cousins, but he's looked horrible in the last 4 games on sides, and the season's on life support.
The Lions are 12-1 after an epic win over the Packers on Thursday night, and may have gone even better news after the game. Jay Glazer reported on Fox this weekend that the Lions might be getting back a major piece for the playoffs.
Might be getting one of their biggest stars back a little bit sooner than maybe they thought. And Aiden Hutchinson, look, here's where he is. He's actually doing some underwater running on an underwater treadmill. He's able to walk on land, as they say. He's supposed to use a cane, but he's not really using it right now. And they actually are holding out hope, just because of how hard he works, that he could possibly be back. Not the Super Bowl, but the NFC Championship game, depending on how that bone feels. And Dan Campbell says also how much practice he can get.
So onsides, offsides, the Lions need Aiden Hutchinson to win the Super Bowl.
It would be helpful. I don't know how healthy he would be, but I'm still going to go offside. They're 12-1 right now, and he's been out now for a good chunk of that. So I would like to have him back, but I don't think they need him to win a Super Bowl this year. So I will go offside.
Offside.
The Eagles are rolling in the NFC, winning 9 straight after their 22-16 win over the suddenly respectable Panthers. However, while Saquon Barkley continues to set records, Jalen Hurts threw for just 108 yards his second straight game with under 120 yards through the air. Now, after the game, receiver A.J. Brown seemed to throw a little shade towards Hurts.
The notion of trying to be on the same page, is that a conversation that should be happening in week 13 of the season?
No.
Why is that?
I just say no.
You said the offense wasn't good enough. What are some things you think that the offense needs to improve?
Passing.
So he said passing. Onside, offsides, you're not concerned about the Eagles' lack of a passing game right now.
I'm not. I'm going to go offside, but I thought A.J. Brown sounded like a douche there. You know, he does this. Even when they were winning and they made it to the Super Bowl, he was upset in that giant playoff game. And I know it wasn't a great performance yesterday, but now it seems like you're not happy with those one-word answers. He should cut that crap out. Next question.
All right, so Arizona State, they won the Big 12, but fortunately didn't have to face Colorado in the title game. Instead, the Buffaloes are headed to the Alamo Bowl to face the Big 12 foe BYU. Now, this weekend, Coach Prime said that you won't see his stars, including his likely Heisman Trophy winner, Travis Hunter, sitting out what is, I guess, a meaningless game. So onside, offsides, it's a mistake for Colorado to make their stars play in the game.
I'm going to say offside, and here is why. I don't rip college players that play in a bowl game, and I don't rip them for sitting out. Now, if Coach Prime is demanding this, it's fine to demand it. But if you're going off the NFL, you could say, hey, Coach Prime, it doesn't really matter. Screw you. I think it's cool that they have not had any real pushback that we've heard about yet. So I'm not going to say it's a mistake for Colorado to make their stars play in this game. I know if Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders, God forbid, got hurt, it would be such a huge talking point. But they obviously, and I know Shedeur's dad is Coach Prime, and Travis Hunter looks at Deion Sanders as a father figure. I think it's cool that their stars are still willing to play. So I'm not going to say it's a mistake. Offside.
Offside. And then last one, sticking with the Big 12, Utah had a disappointing season. They finished 5-7 after many had picked them to win the conference and make the playoffs. Now, after much speculation, 65-year-old head coach Kyle Whittingham, he announced that he'll return for a 22nd season.
Did the Michael Jordan, I'm back.
In Salt Lake City, that's right. Onsides, offsides, 2025 should be Whittingham's last season at Utah.
And when I said he did that, it was clearly someone in the social media team. Kyle Whittingham does not come off to me as someone that's very social media savvy. Now, I talked to Kyle Whittingham about his future, and he's pretty open about it last year in the offseason. He goes, I understand that the end is near, right? That's basically what he said. He goes, I don't expect myself to go coach for another decade. He tried to dismiss that name, image, and likeness in the transfer portal isn't playing a role in it. I think with any of these older coaches that are established and have been around for a while, it's an adjustment, and it causes many pains in the rear ends for them, but he doesn't want to be bitching about it publicly, which I get. You asked me, 2025 should be Whittingham's last season at Utah. I think so, because they already announced a coach in waiting, and then that's 2 full seasons of that coach being in waiting. I think that gets messy. I just don't think he wants to go out on a 5-7 season, and I do believe he could be bowl eligible next year. So as long as he's bowl eligible, I think he'll be done after next season. So 2025 should be Whittingham's last season at Utah. I would say so. I think that's going to be it for him. I would go on sides. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network, 2 hours down. 1 more to go. When we return, Oregon or the field, and who could be the next face of college football. We'll get into that when the Zach Gelb Show continues in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Oregon or the field? That is the question. And this is the Zach Gelb Show for one more hour on this Monday. We take you all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. I'm going Oregon. I know it's chalk. I know Oregon got a tough draw as they get the winner of Ohio State, Tennessee. But who outside of Oregon do you really trust? Like, I go through the remaining 11 other teams. Arizona State. I love Kenny Dillingham. I love Sam Levitt. I love Cam Scatterbo. But are they going to really find a way they could get through Texas or Clemson. But if Arizona State's in the semifinal, are they going to beat Oregon? That's where I think their run would come to an end if they get to the semifinal. You guys know me. I look at Boise State. Boise State played Oregon. They should have won that game. But is Boise State going to beat the winner of Penn State SMU? I think it's a possibility. But are they then going to go on to also take down potentially Georgia and then Oregon? I think that's a lot to ask. Georgia's a team that they could win it all. We don't even know if Carson Beck's going to be able to play. And you got Gunnar Stockton, who did a nice job. And let's be real, Carson Beck, he hasn't been good this year. And I know I'm not on an island in saying that, and I know more and more people have joined me, but I pointed that out about 2.5 months ago, that I was thoroughly disappointed with Carson Beck. You look at Ohio State. They have national championship talent, but Ryan Day has a big game problem. He can't beat Michigan. I know he could beat everybody else, right? That's what people tell you. But look at what happened up against Michigan. If I'm Tennessee, who has a good defense, I know the game is at the Horseshoe, so it's going to be cold, it's going to be frigid. But you take a look at Ohio State, how do you beat them? Line them up, right? Dylan Sampson, who's a great running back. Hand him off the football and run up against Ohio State and have some fun. And by the way, let me play you a cut here from Josh Heupel, the head coach of Tennessee, because that's been a talking point. How these SEC schools, can they go into these cold environments and win? Here is Josh Heupel on playing in the cold weather.
Not sure what the temperature will be up there at night. No, it won't be, sunny and 85. We played in 30-degree weather a week ago. For us, a lot of our practices are in the morning. We're outside. It'll be, similar temperatures to what you're going to get up there. Our guys got to be able to handle anything that comes at them.
So there you go. That's Josh Heupel. So I look at Ohio State. I look at Tennessee. They get whoever wins that, they get Oregon, which is going to be a tough game. But, man, that trio, if you do Oregon, Ohio State, Tennessee, Arizona State, Texas, Clemson, Boise State, Penn State, SMU, Georgia, Notre Dame, Indiana, you said, where's the champion coming out of? It would be with that trio of Oregon, Ohio State, and Tennessee. But I'm looking at this Oregon or the field. I already told you Arizona State. I already told you Boise State. I already told you Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee. I think they're dangerous, but I got trust issues right now with the freshman version of Nico Iamaleava. Texas, you played Georgia twice. One was in your house. You couldn't beat them. The other was at the SEC championship game in Atlanta, and they had their quarterback go down in halftime. Game goes to overtime. You still can't get the job done. So what, Texas, just because your best win is up against Texas A&M and you're ranked as the 5th seed in the bracket, I'm all of a sudden supposed to believe that you're going to go win the national championship this year? I don't. I'll tell you, I usually do not like Dabo Swinney. The last few years, his arrogance has rubbed me the wrong way. This version of cocky Dabo, though, it's weird. I'm actually enjoying it. Now, he's a little delusional. And I know that him winning the ACC this year, he's going to parade around like he doesn't have to utilize the transfer portal whatsoever. But I don't see Clemson as a team that could go win it all. I just don't. Penn State, same thing as Texas. Who have you really won this year? You have the record of a team that got to their conference championship game, going to get the 5th, going to get the 6th seed. But Penn State, in your biggest test of the season, Ohio State, you lost in a winnable game. Oregon, you lost. So do I think Ohio State or do I think Penn State is going to be able to go find the way to win 4 games and hoist that national championship trophy? I don't. SMU, I don't want to say that they're just lucky to be there because that wouldn't be right in terms of how good they have been this season. But there was a chance that the committee could have put Alabama in over SMU. So no, I don't think SMU, who it was nice the way that they came on back in that ACC championship game up against Clemson. If they would have got blown out, heck, they probably missed the college football playoff. But since it ended up being a close game, since it ended up being they lost by a field goal, by a 56-yard field goal, SMU, and the value that the committee placed on not taking away from teams that lost in their conference championship game ended up getting SMU in. Indiana, their coach has the confidence to win a national championship. I don't think Indiana has the team to win a national championship. and in their toughest competition this year up against Ohio State, who has flaws, Indiana, Ohio State, it was a game for the first half, and then that thing got ugly quick in the second half. And the one team I didn't mention was Notre Dame. And even though the stock of Notre Dame has improved in a big-time way, and they haven't lost a game since early September where they lost to NIU. I know they beat Texas A&M. There's always that fraudulent factor with Notre Dame. Like, I like Marcus Freeman. I don't love Marcus Freeman. Notre Dame has a good defense. I love their 1-2 punch. Love the running back. If he's healthy, he's unbelievable. Riley Leonard, he could really run the ball. If they're going to make him throw the ball to go win a game, I am questioning if he could do that. But I look at Notre Dame, there's always a yeah, but with Notre Dame. And I'm more optimistic and bullish on Notre Dame compared to like previous years because I always scream fraud alert, fraud alert, fraud alert. Like they're kind of the way that I view Penn State. And most of the time I talk about Penn State. They're good. They're very good. They'll win a bunch of games, but they'll never win the big game. But I'm more open to Notre Dame this year than in previous years, but I don't think they're winning a championship. So really, like the 4 teams that I can envision winning a championship this year, when I look at the 12 teams that made the college football playoff, Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, and then if I had to throw like a dark horse in there, it would be Tennessee. But really, when I look at Oregon or the field, I think the biggest conversation from that is going to be Oregon or Georgia. And Georgia, we don't even know what's going to happen with their quarterback. So yes, I am of the belief, and I usually like answering the field here, but when I say Oregon or the field, I'm going to go Oregon in this one. Because Oregon this year, they have not lost the game. Now, it doesn't mean they're going to win it all. And I know everyone's bitching about their road right now, but I kind of like that we're bitching about their road. Because usually when you sit there and everyone's on one side, oh, they got screwed. Oh, what's the reward for winning the Big Ten when you have to go up against Ohio State or Tennessee? Like, I get it. I do. But when everyone's usually adamant on that one side, it seems like then people are expecting Oregon to get picked off. I don't think Oregon's going to get picked off. Like, you look at Oregon this year, they got off to a slow start. They didn't play well up against Idaho. They should have lost that game to Boise State. They didn't. But then after that, they beat Oregon State 49-14. They beat UCLA 34-13. They smothered Michigan State 31-10. Will Howard and Ryan Day projectile vomited all over the field in the final minute or two, and Oregon beat Ohio State by 1. They beat Purdue 35-0. They crushed Illinois 38-9. They beat Michigan 38-17. They beat Maryland 39-18. They beat Wisconsin 16-13. They beat Washington 49-21, and they beat Penn State 45-37. Which, let's be real, I know people are praising Penn State after their performance in the Big Ten championship game, and that's why I call them Participation State University. For the majority of the third quarter, that game never felt like it was in reach. And up until Penn State got the ball back on that last drive when they went for it all and they were down by 8, there was never a moment, and even if they scored, I still wouldn't have thought Penn State was going to win, but it didn't feel as close as what the score indicated it was at the end of the game. And let me tell you something. James Franklin, what the heck was he doing? So I know that they were down 14, and I know what people say. If you score the touchdown, the analytics say go for 2, because if you get it, then you're only down by 6, and then if you score a touchdown, a PAT wins the game. But I don't always agree with that. I don't. And in that spot, to go for 2, when it's an 8-point game, and it's an 8-point game to make it to 6, I don't love that. And then look, at the end of the game, even if they scored, they would have had to go get the 2-point conversion. So I'm not a big fan of that. And I know the analytic nerds will be like, oh, Gelb, this is why you went to Temple. What a dope you are. And you don't get the numbers. Yeah, go take your numbers and shove them. All right? That's what I would say. I like analytics. I don't live and die by analytics. I embrace analytics. But I trust my gut more than I do always with the numbers. So I didn't love that from Penn State in that spot. And Aller, he played a great game up until that last decision to go for it all there on 2nd and 1. But, I look at that. Oregon, it was clear. Penn State had no answer for Tez Johnson. No answer whatsoever. So I look at it right now like, Stu, how many teams do you think can win the national championship? I would say 4. Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee. And Tennessee's like that one team that is a dark horse team for me. How many teams can you see legitimately out of the 12 winning the national championship?
I'm not sure if I see Tennessee, but I think those other three are the three that I would go with. I would go with Oregon as my favorite, and then I think Georgia.
Is that it for you?
That's it. I don't think there's...
Not Ohio State?
And Ohio State, those three.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So no, not Tennessee, but Ohio State in that conversation.
Oh, okay.
So Ohio State, Georgia, and of course Oregon.
Yeah, I can't crush you for that. I can't. But I still feel like this is Oregon's to lose. And Georgia's the team that you'd fear the most. But Georgia's offense, if we got a national championship game, Oregon, Georgia, I'd be good for it. But Georgia's offense has been such a question mark where they've struggled to run the football, and we don't even know if Carson Beck's going to be able to play. Maybe Gunnar Stockton's better for them right now. You know, Peter Burns earlier said maybe Gunnar Stockton could end up being their Cardell Jones. You know, that's what he ended up saying. But with all that being said, I think this is just a year where you look at Oregon, not usually the team that has the best offense is going to be able to always win. But I look at Oregon, they just score so many points. We're up against Georgia. If you get into the 20s, you know, the mid-20s, you're going to win that game. I really do believe that. So that's why I feel that Oregon's going to win the national championship this year. And we're on the verge. We really are. We are on the verge of seeing Dan Lanning become the next face of college football. And that was a conversation before the start of the year. And we always said this about Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart may have the best team, but I don't think he embraces wanting to be the face of college football. Now, you win enough, eventually you become the villain, and eventually you become the face of college football. But Kirby, to me, doesn't have the personality, but maybe actually he does. You see him go out there. It was very Saban-like. You win the SEC championship game, and you're sitting there and you're pounding the commissioner, Greg Sankey, for making you go on the road so much. I thought that was nice. A nice little play there by Kirby Smart. It was insufferable, but it was also nice, if that makes any sense. But I'm looking at this like Coach Prime, if they would have made the college football playoff, you know, there's an argument to be made with the personality of Coach Prime and also having a team that got into the college football playoff that maybe he becomes the next face of college football. But you look at Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning has the personality. He's not afraid to get in your face. Remember, you know, the whole talk with your helmet rant that he had right before they played Colorado in that fiery speech. And he has a confidence to him that does resonate as a guy that could be the face of college football. So in this era now, with Nick Saban in retirement and on the ESPN, Jim Harbaugh is saying, peace out to the NCAA, bleep you, I'm leaving, screw you, I'm going back to the NFL. I would say Dan Lanning, he has probably the most to gain here out of any individual in the college football playoff. Because Dan Lanning could not only win a national championship in his first year in the Big Ten, but then from a national standpoint and an individual standpoint, he could be viewed as the face of the sport, and you could argue the most powerful person in the sport. And I know that individuals in terms of players are becoming more and more important, but they always have a limitation in terms of how long they're there because they advance to the NFL. And that's why in college sports, the coach is usually the face. But in this name, image, and likeness era, yeah, players do gain more and more power. But a guy like Shedeur Sanders, right, if you want to say he was the face of the sport, or an Ashton Genty or Travis Hunter, they're there for a few years, and then they're off to the pros. So there's a lot on the line here for Dan Lanning. And Dan Lanning last year, and I like Dan Lanning a lot, but in his two biggest games of the season up against Washington, he couldn't get the job done. So I thought that was a nice little monkey off his back. Not a big one, a nice little monkey off his back, taking care of Penn State and winning that Big Ten championship game. And you beat Ohio State early in the year, so it can't be one of those things where you say, oh, well, if Ohio State was there, you wouldn't win. But, yeah, if they don't find the way to win these next three games, coming off whoever wins between Ohio State, Tennessee, then, you know, they'll get whoever emerges from Texas, Clemson, and Arizona State. And then you'll see out of Penn State, Boise State, SMU, Georgia, Notre Dame, Indiana in the championship game. Yeah, obviously I would be disappointed. So Oregon or the field, I'm going to take Oregon. What say you? 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. If you also want to chime in on the poll question, you could do that as well at Zach Gelb, at INF Sportsnet. And the poll question today, number 12, Clemson, and number 5, Texas. Number 9, Tennessee versus number 8, Ohio State. 11, SMU at number 6, Penn State. Number 10, Indiana versus number 7, Notre Dame. Who do you trust the most to pull off the upset in the first round? And the return on the poll question right now, 37.9% do say Tennessee. 25.8% do say Indiana. And then you have SMU with the slight edge over Clemson right now by 0.2 of a vote, which is kind of crazy when you look at the percentages of that, I should say. So we'll continue to update you on those numbers before we do say goodbye to you. All righty, we'll take a timeout. When we come on back, we're going to get into the NFL from yesterday. College football has been the main story. We'll do some no-huddle offense next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. 45 seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
Yeah, that's me. And that's right. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Let's do a little no huddle offense, Week 14 style. Where we go.
Touchdowns, sacks, upsets, and last-minute heroics. Another NFL Sunday is in the books, and we've got you covered with the biggest plays and sound bites from another wild week in the National Football League. It's time for No Huddle Offense on the Zach Gelb Show.
So when did you know that the Kansas City Chiefs were going to find a way to get another victory over the Los Angeles Chargers that they did so last night on Sunday Night Football on NBC? Yeah. Well, I knew it when the Chargers had to settle for a field goal. They were on a really, really, really long drive, nearly 9 minutes off the clock, 14 plays. They're marching down the field, and then there was a sack, and they had to end up kicking a field goal. The moment they kicked that field goal, and it was only a 1-point game, I go, all righty, here comes Patrick Mahomes. 3rd and 10, conversion, they got it. 3rd and 1, conversion, they got it. 3rd and 7, conversion, they got it. 3rd and 12, sets up this game-winning field goal that we ended up getting from Matthew Wright. A 31-yard game-winning field goal, which almost was no good. Let's listen up and hear how it sounded.
Winchester snaps it. Placement is down. Wright's kick is up. And the kick is good! 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 And the Kansas City Chiefs do it again. The 3rd kicker this season to have a walk-off field goal.
That's Mitch Holthus on the Chiefs radio network. Stu, he's one of my favorites. I know it's tough, because even on TV now, it's tough to tell if the kicks actually go through. And that was a doink, or as Mike Tirico said, a division doink. But you could hear how loud the doink is, and he just made it seem as if it was an easy kick. I don't think he really knew. Play me that audio one more time and listen up. You could hear the doink. And he doesn't say it was off the upright and in. He was just like, good, good, good.
Winchester snaps it. Placement is down. Wright's kick is up. And the kick is good! 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 And the Kansas City Chiefs do it again. The 3rd kicker this season to have a walk-off field goal.
You got to tell me that it hit the upright. Like, if I'm in my car, I can't see the game. You got to tell me that. And he didn't do that. So there's my one criticism, really, of the Chiefs, who are 12-1. And they keep on inventing new ways to win. Usually it's been the other team spitting up all over themselves, like Stu's Raiders a few weeks ago with the drop snap. We've seen, the Broncos, who got a kick blocked. This one, they said, all right, Matthew Wright, or like 5th-string kicker, kick the ball off the upright and have it go through. That's just the luck of the Kansas City Chiefs. What's the question here, Stu?
Yeah, what's your confidence level in the 3P with all the one-score wins they've had?
8 out of 10. I can't tell you I'm not confident in them. And I really think right now there's only 4 teams I envision winning a Super Bowl this year. The Chiefs, I know the Bills lost yesterday, and then you look at the Eagles and you look at the Lions. You know, put some stock on the, invest a few dollars on the Minnesota Vikings, but still, as great of a season Sam Darnold's having, do I believe he's going to go win 4 games in the postseason and win a Super Bowl? No, I do not. All right, let's get to the Bills. Let's get to the Rams out at SoFi Stadium. If I would have told you in this one that Josh Allen would have 6 total touchdowns in this game and the Buffalo Bills would have lost, you would have said, Zach, maybe you misread the final box score. No, I didn't. So how did the Bills lose this one? Well, at the end, what is Joe Brady and Sean McDermott doing running the football when you got 3 timeouts? All right? You can't. And then you take a timeout, and then you have to try to go get the ball back, but you got to onside kick it, and that's a low percentage play. That was absolutely miserable. It really was. But you look back at this, Josh Allen in this one, I still can't believe it. I can't even believe it. 22 of 37 for 3 touchdowns, 342 passing yards, leading rusher for the Bills, 3 rushing touchdowns, 82 rushing yards, and they lost 44-42. What a day for Sean McVay and his offense. And Puka Nacua, he was awesome. Absolutely awesome in the game. Khalil Shakir, 5 catches for 106 yards and a touchdown. Amari Cooper, 6 for 95. Matthew Stafford, 23 of 30, 320 yards and 2 passing touchdowns in this one. And like I said, Puka Nacua was spectacular. 12 receptions for 162 yards and a tutty on only 14 targets. Wow, 12 receptions, 14 targets, a heck of a job. And Cooper Kupp, 5 receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown. He had a great touchdown catch. So Rams, they keep their season alive at 7-6. Bills, man, that's a rough stretch for the Bills. Coming off that win up against the Niners, you're a game behind Kansas City. You beat Kansas City. You're trying to get the number 1 overall seed. You lose the game to the Rams. And you also see the Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday Night Football have a division doink to win the AFC West. Because it would have been one thing if you lose that game and then Kansas City loses, but now you're not going to get the 1 seed. Now you're just going to go get the number 2 seed. So that's disappointing. We'll see what happens with the Pittsburgh Steelers, too, because they're in contention for the 2 seed as well. Anyway, Rams and Bills. Rams win 44-42. Stu, what's the question we got cooking here?
So outside of the Eagles and Lions, the Rams are the scariest team in the NFC.
Great question. And I had a Super Bowl future just to get to the Super Bowl out of the NFC on the Rams before the season started. Thankfully, I didn't cash out on that. Tampa Bay, I don't think is dangerous. Atlanta, I don't think is dangerous. Green Bay, I think they're flawed. Commanders, I think they could just get in the postseason. I don't think they're going to win it all. Seahawks, they're good. We'll see. You know what? It's the Vikings. I do think the Rams are dangerous, but I don't know if the Rams are going to get in because only one team's going to go from the NFC West. And I'll tell you this. Last game of the season, you do have the Seattle Seahawks at the LA Rams. That will be your Week 18 Sunday Night Football match. I'll be very surprised by that one if it's not. So are the Rams the scariest team in the NFC outside of the Eagles and the Lions? I'm still going to say that it's the Minnesota Vikings, because at least I know the Vikings will be there. I do not know if the Rams will be there. All righty, let's get to the Seahawks and the Cardinals. I was disappointed yesterday in Arizona. Kyler Murray had 2 interceptions early in this one. The Seahawks end up winning the game 30-18. You look back at the stats from this one. Geno Smith, 233 passing yards and a passing touchdown. Jackson Smith and Jigba, 5 catches for 82 yards and a TD. Tyler Lockett had no catches. DK Metcalf, 4 for 49. Zach Charbonnet, 134 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns. Also had 7 catches for 59 yards. He's been catching the football at a really good trend the last few weeks. Kyler Murray, 2 picks, 2 touchdowns, 259 yards passing. Trey McBride, 7 catches for 70 yards. Marvin Harrison Jr., 4 catches for 49 yards. Let's hear the Zach Charbonnet 51-yard touchdown run. This made it Seahawks 24, Cardinals 10.
Handoff, Charbonnet, left side, has a first down and then some. He's down to the 30, the 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, Seahawks. And they are still chasing Zach Charbonnet, his 2nd touchdown of the game. The Seahawks came in saying, we got to find a way to run the ball. Holy catfish, they do.
There we go. We got a holy catfish. That just made my day. Stu, what's the question here from the Seahawks win over the Cardinals?
Yeah, so Geno Smith, he leads the NFL in passing yards. At what point do we believe in him?
Believe in him to what extent? Just wondering.
As like a starting quarterback that's maybe a top 10 to 12 quarterback in the league.
No, he's not top 10 to 12. He's top 15, like he's 15, 16. He's a good quarterback. Is he great? Is he very good? I'm not going to go there. I think his ceiling is he's a guy that could win 1 playoff game. And even so, I don't know how much I'd be picking them in the wild card round. But I think all you could expect out of the Seahawks is, okay, go win the NFC West and you could win one playoff game, and that would be a stupendous season. But I would still look back at it saying, I don't believe he's their franchise guy. Let's go to the Browns and the Steelers. Now, this game, I don't think you walk away from it all that impressed from the Steelers, but all the Steelers had to do was just win, and they did that. They're now 10-3. They're 5-1 at home this year. Pittsburgh gets a 27-14 win over the Cleveland Browns, who are just dreadful. Jameis Winston has 5 interceptions in his last 2 games. Myles Garrett had a sack and a fumble recovery. Russell Wilson, 158 yards passing, 2 passing touchdowns. And the Steelers are averaging 28.4 points per game with Russell Wilson as a starter. Najee Harris found the end zone. Pat Freiermuth also got into the end zone as well. And Cam Hayward has been in the NFL for a long time at 2 sacks in this one. Let's listen up. This was the Russell Wilson 20-yard touchdown pass to Pat Freiermuth.
Wilson gets a snap, back looking to fire over the middle of the field, and it is complete. It is a touchdown, Pittsburgh Steelers. Pat Freiermuth makes the reception and boots the ball up into the stands here at Acrisure Stadium. Oh, yeah.
That's an interesting chant. Muth. That's what they end up doing? I don't know. Pat Freiermuth? Does that make sense to you? I know that happens like all the time for the fans to be like, Muth.
Fans are drunk. Leave them alone.
No, like, I get it, but I don't know. With Muth? That's what we're doing here?
Fans are drunk. Leave them alone.
I could be drunk. Happy. I don't know if I'm saying Muth.
I've seen some videos.
Of me drunk?
You would.
You seen videos of me drunk?
Yeah.
So you're the one that hacked into my phone? You got all those videos? Son of a bitch. Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, Stu, what do we got cooking here for the question?
Yeah, you ready to buy into the Steelers?
Oh, you know what? For Stu, it works. Stu!
Definitely works for Stu.
Stu! And I'm not even drunk.
It works for a lot of people. As I said, they're drunk and happy.
Or that you know of.
Wow. I'm going to take for granted.
You don't know what's in this bottle right here.
I don't want to know what's in that bottle. That's the point.
You want some vodka?
No. No, I don't.
No, it's just high-quality H2O.
Professional.
Bobby Boucher and his dad. All right, what do you got cooking here, Stu?
Are you ready to buy into the Steelers as threats in the AFC?
Yeah. So I still think that the Chiefs and the Bills are the 2 Super Bowl contenders. Chiefs 1, now Buffalo 2, even though the Bills did beat the Chiefs. But outside of that, who else are you picking? You know, the Chargers showed you that they still got a little bit ways to go after losing that game yesterday. The Texans haven't taken that next step. Baltimore, I love Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, but that defense stinks. And the Pittsburgh Steelers continue to overachieve. Now, I still think there's that feeling, just like how you kind of have with Notre Dame football and Penn State football, can you win when it matters? But for Pittsburgh, yeah, you haven't won a playoff game since the 2016 season, but they keep on having these really good regular seasons, so they're the 3rd best team in the AFC right now. All righty, and finally, the 49ers win yesterday. I think the storyline more is just the incompetence of the Bears. And I was a dope here. I took the Bears yesterday at +4, and the line at kickoff moved all the way down to 3. So I felt good with that line moving in that direction. I really did. I'm like, oh, more and more people like me, they're on the Bears. And the Bears just had a complete and utter no-show. They didn't get a point until the second half. They lose 38-13. You don't even get the emotional boost from getting rid of Matt Eberflus and having your interim coach come on in. But 38-13, doesn't matter if the 49ers are decimated with injuries. They're out to a 3rd string, a 4th string running back. It doesn't matter. Here is Brock Purdy on a 16-yard touchdown pass to Juwan Jennings. The route was on at 21-0.
Purdy out of the shotgun, looks right, throws, caught. Juwan Jennings diving into the end zone. Touchdown! San Francisco!
Yeah, guess what? It was 3rd down, and Juwan Jennings shows up.
And here are the numbers from this one. Brock Purdy, you know, he was rocking out with this Brock out this year. You know, this game hasn't been really doing it this year. 325 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. You also had Mr. Kittle go 6 catches for 151 yards. You just heard Juwan Jennings, one of his touchdowns. He had 7 catches for 90 yards and 2 total touchdowns in this one. And then for the Bears, geez, they had 2 touchdowns from Caleb Williams, only 135 yards passing, 27 passing yards in the first half. DJ Moore only 6 catches for 49 yards. Roma Dunze only 4 for 42 yards. Did have 2 touchdowns, though. Keenan Allen, 3 catches for 30 yards. Stu, what's the question that we got cooking up here?
Yeah, is there any hope for the 49ers? Can they still turn this around, make the playoffs, be a threat?
I don't think so. I just think it's not their year. they're 6-7. They're still alive. Niners are 6-7. Cardinals are 6-7. I do think they'll finish in front of the Arizona Cardinals, but the Rams are 7-6, and the Seahawks are at 8-5. And you look at the Seahawks' remaining schedule. They play the Packers, the Vikings, the Bears, the Rams. So there's one guaranteed victory there. So that's not a slam dunk sure thing. You look at the Rams, their remaining schedule, 49ers, Jets, Cardinals, Seahawks. I tell you, I think the Rams are going to the playoffs. I do. Now, I'll give you the remaining schedules for the other two. Arizona Cardinals, Patriots, Panthers, Rams, 49ers. So you got to win those next two games and then take one more. And then you look at the San Francisco 49ers sitting there at 6-7. Rams, Dolphins, Lions, Cardinals. Yeah, I don't trust them against the Lions, and I think they'll lose one other game. I think they've dug themselves in too deep of a hole. I see 8 wins max, maybe 9. You know, even if they go 3-1 here down the stretch, I don't think that's going to be enough. I really don't think it will be. So I don't believe they're going to turn around and still be a threat. I just don't think it's there yet. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. That was a little no-huddle offense. We will do one more college football segment when we come on back. We'll also talk about this Monday Night Football game tonight that I think nobody cares about, but at least we'll give you a thought on it. But first up, with the latest Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash, here is El Capitan, Marco Belletti.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Zach, Bill Belichick, North Carolina, reportedly still discussing that head coaching spot. 6-time Super Bowl winning coach went on the Pat McAfee show, explained how things could look for him in college.
Let me put this in capital letters. If.
Yeah.
I-F. If I was in a college program, the college program would be a pipeline to the NFL for the players that had the ability to play in the NFL.
Speaking of the NFL, Monday Night Football, Cowboys, Bengals, not a lot to play for, but Joe Burrow looking forward to the spotlight.
I always like playing on primetime. You know, I like showcasing my abilities and hard work, putting that on display, you know, in front of the world.
Now, it's for Panthers running back Jonathan Brooks tore his ACL. Second time he's done that in the last 13 months. Mets still basking in the glow of landing 26-year-old Juan Soto on the richest contract in sports history, $765 million over 15 years with a $75 million signing bonus, along with an opt-out after 5. But Mets can void it after adding another $40 million, which will bring the grand total of this deal north of $800 million. Winter meetings ongoing in Dallas. Phillies reportedly land former Blue Jays closer Jordan Romano. I'm Marco Belletti.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick. From the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh my God, we're back again.
All right, it's time to answer Ask the Pros question of the day. It's brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. AJ in Alabama says, Zach, how do you think the committee did when seeding teams 5 through 8? You could submit a question by tweeting at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. Think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Personally, if I was the committee, and I know that we don't want to see teams that lose the conference championship game get impacted, but I think there's a difference. Like SMU, I don't think they should have been left out of the field because they lost their conference championship game. And at first I was like, okay, at least the committee was consistent. At least they did their job and they had somewhat of a consistent script in this last one where they didn't punish Texas, they didn't punish Penn State, and they didn't punish SMU. But if you look at the individual resume, Texas, Ohio State, and Penn State, you know, who do you think is the best team out of the three? and this is coming from someone who can't stand Ryan Day, but I think it's Ohio State. Where I get it, Ohio State has the indefensible loss to Michigan. But I think the wins are more important. And when you look at it, with all three of those teams finishing with 2 losses, even though it took, obviously, Penn State and Texas an extra game to play to get that second loss, like Texas lost to Georgia twice. Then who do they beat? Texas A&M? So I then see Penn State, and you look at their schedule. Who did Penn State's best wins like USC or Illinois? And they lost to Oregon, and Penn State also lost to Ohio State. So you look at Ohio State, they beat Penn State, but they're seated behind them. They lost to Oregon by only 1, and they lost. And the reason why you end up having Ohio State that far down in the 8th spot is it's either because they lost to Michigan or they just didn't want to, what I think is more the case, penalize a team that lost in a Big Ten championship game. So I look at it, if I was doing the seeding, this is what I would have personally done. If I was doing the seeding, this is what I would have done. Oregon 1, Georgia 2, Boise State 3, Arizona State 4. I would have put Notre Dame 5 up against Clemson 12. I would have put Texas 6, SMU 11. I would have put Ohio State 7, Indiana 10, and I would have put Penn State 8, and I would have put Tennessee 9. Like Notre Dame has 1 loss. I would have been fine bumping them up, even though you could say, well, who the heck did they really beat? Texas, they lost to Georgia twice. That's the only flaw in their resume. And really, you could even argue, Texas has a better win than anything Penn State has. So that's why I put Texas in front of Penn State, because Texas, they at least beat A&M. And then Ohio State, you don't want to reward them too much for not making the conference championship game, but Ohio State beat Penn State head-to-head. And they beat them. So I would have put Penn State in an 8. And I think those two teams, Penn State and Texas, there's a lot of pressure on them. There's a lot of pressure on them because they got a very favorable draw, and that's not to be disrespectful to Boise State or Arizona State. I think one of those teams are going to win. I do think we'll see either Boise State or Arizona State. I don't know whom, but I do think one of them will end up being in the semifinal. And you take a glance at it, the way that it shakes on out, with Texas getting the 5 and Penn State getting the 6, Texas playing Clemson and SMU playing Penn State. If either Sark or Texas, if they lose that first round game, it's going to be ugly. It's going to be real ugly. And I do think one of them will get picked off in the second round. But, yeah, when I examine seeds 5, 6, 7, and 8, I understand what the committee did. I'm not furious. But I think they could have done an alternative method. I really do. So they're doing what? It's a Simpson night tonight, Stu? So this is like the Nickelodeon, I guess, broadcast? Is this on the Aikman and Buck feed? Well, what's going on here? Do you have any idea about this?
Vaguely, a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not really interested in it, to be honest.
Okay, gotcha. Maybe the only reason to watch this game tonight, Bengals
true.
and Cowboys?
It's not a great game. It looked like a good game at the start of the season, but now it's kind of like, what are we doing here?
No, I understand why they put it on Monday night, but, gee, you have the Manning cast where you're going to get Belichick on the Manning cast tonight.
That's intriguing.
I guess it's intriguing if he's a little bit more forthcoming than what he was with Pat McAfee today, where Bill Belichick basically said, Pat, I'm going to give you a press conference, Bill, because there's a chance, UNC and I, are going to be a relationship. So it's like, I guess there's a little interest just to see what this Simpson broadcast is. I'll catch the second half of it because I'm going right after the show to Madison Square Garden tonight to watch my dreadful New York Hockey Rangers up against the Chicago Blackhawks tonight. So I am going to the Garden, and we'll end up having a fun time at Madison Square Garden. And a suite tonight, which very happy. Free food. Stu, I don't know if I want to have a drink tonight. Like, maybe I'll have, like, a beer. That will be it. But a Monday night drink, I don't know. I'm not really. Maybe a little, if they have like a glass of wine or something in the suite. How was the Devils game that you went to? Just curious.
It was good. It was a good time. They won, and we sat kind of. Usually we sit up pretty low, but we were more up top in this one.
Yeah.
So I don't mind that in hockey because you get to see kind of everything play
develop
out.
too.
It's like football is the same way. I feel
now your girlfriend, she was out of town, right? Because she was at the last concert of the Eras tour?
She was at the third to last. So there were 3 this weekend: Friday, Saturday, Sunday. She was at the Friday show.
Now, source says you were disappointed you didn't get the invite. Because you are a big Swiftie. Is that fair to say that you were disappointed?
So it was a birthday gift from her sister. And based off of what was spent, I don't think adding a third person would have been, that would have been financially smart.
So I know those tickets are always expensive. Now, this was the third to last leg of the tour.
Yes.
The last show of the tour. How were the seats? Where were they? Where were they seated? Did you have any idea?
So they weren't on the floor, but they were like in the
100 level?
100 level, yes.
Oh boy, do you know how much they cost? Don't tell me. Do you know how much they cost?
I do.
Okay, can I take a guess?
You sure can.
Now this is just a dumb guess. This is a blind guess because I don't really know the Swiftie market outside of that. It's very expensive. Lower bowl, was it a big birthday?
No, 29.
Oh, 29, so it wasn't 30.
Next year's the big one.
Okay. And how old are you still? You're 30?
I'm 33 now.
33?
Unfortunately.
Okay. I'm going to say per ticket, they get face or second market?
Second market.
Should I go prices right here where I got to if I don't want to go over? I'm going to say 1,200 per ticket. Higher?
Not like a lot higher. It's less than 2, but it was like in that high 1,000 range per ticket.
1,750?
Yeah. It was in that I don't know the exact, but it's like 7. It's like in that 1,800.
Can I just give you some advice here still? I think now you have bargaining power in terms of, I know you didn't pay for it, but you want to go see Notre Dame in the college football playoff.
You see those prices?
No, I did not.
It is like at least 1,000 just to get in that building.
December 20th, Friday night, 8 p.m. up against Indiana.
Yeah, click that. See those prices.
Oh, my God. End zone, lower bowl, 36 rows off the field. Before fees, $889. Get a press pass if you want to go, Stu. Maybe you drive. We'll have Stu on the road.
Oh, my God.
I'll have you call in. I did that ride to South Bend once.
Did you?
Yeah, I did the ride from Philadelphia, Temple, Notre Dame. I did that ride. I didn't do any of the driving. My buddy Chase.
How long was that?
Long. I don't even remember.
Double digits, right? Hour-wise?
It was long. Yeah, we did it in a day, but it was long. I want to say 11 or 12 hours.
Yeah, that sounds
something
right.
like that. So it was crazy.
Ugh.
I guess the Bengals win tonight. If I had to give you a gambling pick, I would lay the 4.5 with the Cincinnati Bengals, but who gives a crap about that game, if I'm just being honest. We know Joe Burrow puts up a lot of points this year. He has 30 passing touchdowns. All right, big thanks to Stu, big thanks to Samter, big thanks to Marco, big thanks to each and every one of you for listening. Peter Burns for stopping by as well. We'll talk manana, everybody, at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific time. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.